This is the Gambling Gauchos.
Hey, if we keep playing and fighting for each other, and no matter what happens, we just say, what's next? That's all we do. Somebody turn on some damn music!
You're listening to the Gambling Gauchos. Talking Texas Tech. Betting on the Big 12 and beyond. We've got everything you need. Money lines, memes, and matadors.
Well, you want to quit, Ethan? That'll be the day.
Now, here's Kyle Jacobson and Rob Bro. The Money Line Matadors. The Casino Cowboys. The Parlay Picadors.
You see, in this world, there's two kinds of people, my friend. Those with loaded guns, and those who dig. You dig. Win.
The Gambling Gauchos. Oh, and one more thing. It's all West Texas. It always has been.
Welcome to the Gambling Gauchos. I'm Rob Bro. He's Kyle Jacobson, live on YouTube, the Cardinal Sports Center studio. You can gear up for any event at the Cardinals Sports Center, online or in person. Joined today by Tech Hoops guy, overall
What's up?
Statistician. How you doing, man?
Doing good. Just got back from Houston. From the Shriners.
All 6 games we watched yesterday.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I was at Minute Maid. I got there at 5:30 and left at 12:30. So I was there 7 hours.
Man,
that's almost as long as our podcast intro.
Yeah, I've got it. Yeah, this is an operation. I'm impressed.
When do we get it going?
I've never seen this platform that we're on, StreamYard. It looks good. Yeah, I've got an intro that seems professional.
It only works when Rob is around. I tried to do a stream last night, and I'm wise beyond my years in terms of technology, or old beyond my years, I guess, not wise. And so I just had to do a Twitter Spaces because I don't know how to do this stuff. So that's all Rob.
Did you realize that empty stream was just sitting there for 24 hours?
Yeah, I figured, but I didn't know how to stop it.
Just waiting to be started.
What can you do?
You said a line there that really describes us well. Seems professional. It's just a very base layer.
Comes across that way.
It's true.
Seems being the key word. All right, so you went to 2 of the games this weekend. I went to all 3. The Rice game, yeah, I don't know. We can kind of talk about it or not. It's tough to go from Gonzaga, Western Illinois, Air Force to an ace that Rice had and be prepared. But I thought you played well against Michigan for the most part. I thought you played against A&M really well. What were your main takeaways from the series this weekend?
Yes. Like I said, we ran into a guy, Rice, and I've been watching him. He threw really well against Stanford, and Stanford's got one of the best lineups in the country. And it's kind of a weird story. I guess he was like their catcher last year, and he played and pitched well, or pitched a lot on the summer ball team that some of our guys are on. I think Bazell and Cash were on the same team with him. And so I thought we would hit him, we would knock him around a little bit, but I was impressed with him. But my biggest takeaway was the ballpark. I thought kind of screwy when you play in a major league ballpark, and they had the roof open, and so there was often some wind. But we hit balls throughout the weekend that are going to be a home run in 90% of the parks you're playing in, and they were not this weekend. And it's like we hit. I think Cash had one against Rice, and he had one against A&M last night. That if you're playing in a college park, you probably win the game. And then you can nitpick and say, well, maybe they would have hit some too. But I was there, and they really didn't. It was kind of us catching those kind of breaks. And in fact, Rice, the wind was blowing out to right, and they had lefties that just barreled up some balls. When Girton's throwing 98 miles an hour, if you barrel the ball up and it's in the right side of the park, it's got a chance of going out. It was so long-winded version of like we kind of got unlucky. Like the park did not help us in any way in the first game or the one we lost. That was my takeaway, because I thought we pitched really well. very impressed with our pitchers on the weekend.
Yeah, even when Gert ran into trouble, there was the mishandle there at second base. I don't remember who it was. I guess it was Tracer Lopez, maybe, or no, it was a throw from Bazell that was low. That would have gotten him out of the inning, and so you kind of extend him there, and he settled back in. So I have no qualms with any of the pitching, even after the A&M game where Damian Bravo has the rough ninth inning. Tim Tadlock said afterwards, "I wish we would have let him throw his fastball more."
Yeah, I like Bravo and what I've seen of him. And in fact, when he was warming up, he was pumping strikes in. Like he was throwing his off speed and he was throwing fastballs. And like I'm sitting there thinking, okay, this guy's going to be good. I just saw there's comments on this.
Yeah, we got.
What did that say?
This one, Tech Hoops guy looks like a better looking young Ben Affleck, like Daredevil style.
So I don't know how y'all do this, but so we're live and people are commenting. So I've only been on one podcast and it's like the most rinky dink thing that's ever been created. And we don't have any of this stuff. This is actually, you got to multitask.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll warn you next time I throw up a comment. Kyle always gets distracted.
It's tough, man. I've been doing this with Rob for a long time, and I still can't read the comments while I'm trying to finish a point. It's one or the other for me. I can't multitask.
Yeah. Anyways, I like Bravo. I liked what I saw from him. Maybe we obviously left him in there a little too long, but I mean he's a freshman and he's got what looks like a really good off-speed pitch, and he's throwing like low 90s, and he doesn't have like a frame that you would just think, oh my God, this guy's going to throw hard, which tells me at some point, I mean, he's going to throw harder at some, next year and the year after. I liked him. That was unfortunate though. And it was a tough, man, you were there. Those Aggies, they were doing all their cultish, that was a tough environment.
Yes.
I mean, when you're not throwing strikes, they can kind of get in your head a little bit.
Over the weekend, A&M showed up the most, fan-wise. I thought Tech was probably the second most. And then Louisville. I thought Louisville had a good showing. Rice fans are sparse. TCU fans were sparse. But I thought Louisville, Texas Tech, and even Michigan had a pretty good showing. They're a national fan base, I guess, but
yeah,
a little disappointed in what TCU brought. Did you see the final standings for not to make it a competition, but for the
I did
the money,
the donations?
Yeah,
we won.
That's what I thought. Yeah, and then we were ahead early, then we were down a little, rallied and came back. So that's nice.
That's not really like TCU's fan base to not show up like that. But relating to the pitching, not only was it a 3-game series, which of course you'll need to win some of those if you want to do something in conference play, do something in the postseason. You almost played 2 games on Sunday night into Monday morning, and you didn't use, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Trendon Parrish appeared this weekend.
Saturday. He threw Saturday. Really well.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Yeah.
Derek Bridges did not, and Bo Blessey did not. And so there's potential that as deep as your pitching looked through, 27 plus 7 more innings, almost 4 games this weekend, you've got potential, like your best starter and best reliever potentially are still out there. And so this could be an insanely deep pitching staff, both starters and out of the bullpen, if everyone can get healthy and if they maybe live up to some of the preseason expectations.
Yeah, and I thought Mason Molina had 2 really good innings, and then a couple more pretty good ones. Again, impressed with all the starters. I was not unimpressed with the pitching against A&M. In fact, giving up 1 run in the 9th inning where they have bases loaded, you really got out of it pretty well to be tied there. I was more frustrated with the bats in extra innings. The at-bats shortened up. I thought you pressed. Even a guy like Dylan Carter, who, hey, man, you're in year 4 now, and he just did not look prepared for the moment late. And he took his batting gloves off, and there was some mental challenges there, I thought, in a couple of his at-bats.
Yeah, he had a big hit.
He did.
Big hit. But there was one about, they went to a freshman, I think from Montgomery, who had not pitched a lot, and he was throwing it. I remember just thinking, like, here's Dylan Carter. He's like a 4th-year guy. This is a good spot for us, him facing this guy who's just coming in. and I think he ended up striking out. And he was mad about some of the calls that he was getting. But no, you're right. Some of our guys, it's hard to be critical of our shortstop. I think what did our shortstop position do last night? I think it was 6 strikeouts at least.
Yeah. And Will Burns and Trace Lopez, both high school seniors.
Exactly. So and A&M. So they've lost some games this year. They lost a series to Portland, and they lost midweek to Lamar. But their Sunday guy was throwing like 98 miles an hour, and he's like a third-year guy. He threw a lot of innings in Omaha last year. He's not just like some guy off the street. I mean, this is a real deal SEC Power 5 like weekend arm, and it was our senior in high school / freshman shortstops. They were overpowered, and they were clearly late on fastball. In fact, a lot of our lineup was overpowered by that guy, which was not a great sign. I mean, we had some like Kevin Bazell not phased, Gavin Cash not phased, even like Nolan Hester not phased by that type of velocity. But that was the first time I think that we'd really seen that this year, and it was not an ideal kind of debut against that kind of arm, because if you're going to advance, you're going to face that. You're going to eventually have to win a Friday or Saturday game in postseason against a guy that's throwing with that velocity.
Yeah, and I have not seen Iowa yet this year.
Yeah,
but they're 9-1. They're going to be a really good. Have you been paying attention?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So for some background, I bet college baseball, and so I keep my angle, quote unquote, is all pitching related. So in Major League Baseball, if you bet it, the lines will have a pitcher listed, and if you actually bet on a team and the pitcher is scratched, your bet's voided. Like you're actually betting on that pitcher. Now there are some ways to bet pro baseball where you can bet it to where the bet won't be voided if the guy isn't starting. But obviously, if you've played baseball, if you just have a brain in general, the starting pitcher is maybe the most important thing that's going into the game. And college baseball, especially early in the year, does not account for the pitchers. And so if you can just have an idea of who is pitching, like a team, who they throw on a given day, and if you're able to match those up, you're going to be able to win. Actually, you're going to be able to win. It's maybe the easiest sport to bet is college baseball. And so I was one of those teams that you really have to be aware of, because they've got a guy who they're going to throw him Saturday. Who was that tight end for Notre Dame that pitched for the Cubs?
Jeff Samardzija.
They have Jeff Samardzija. They have a receiver on their football team that literally throws 100 miles an hour. He'll probably be the best quote unquote stuff that we'll see like in the regular season, unless we run into like some of the guys for Tennessee or LSU or Florida. They beat LSU, the best team in the country, with this guy on the mound. He's wild. He's like 6'8". He throws 100 miles an hour. And he's not a guy that's going to throw like 9 innings, because he's not very like economical, but he's their Saturday guy, which means their Friday guy, I think his name is Langenberg. Very good. Then their Sunday guy, his name is Marcus Morgan or something. I think he's a lefty that I've got on my list. Like if I have a guy on my list that I'm like aware of, they're probably there's probably 100 names, and Iowa's got 3 of them, which is a lot for a Big Ten team to have. So we're about to run into some really good arms this weekend, and then we're going to play a midweek game against New Mexico, who's good, and we just flew in. It's not and we pitched all the guys we were going to pitch in the extra innings, and so we're going to be starting a guy we were going to start Kyle Robinson in that game. So this midweek is not going to be any easier. So it'll be an interesting week for Tech baseball.
Do you think Kyle Robinson worked himself back into the weekend since he did pitch?
I don't know. I think that's a good question. I've always been fascinated with Tadlock. I think so. In tracking pitchers, there are certain teams like West Virginia's one that comes to mind. Florida's another. They throw their quote unquote ace on Saturday, and what you do is you use your second or third best arm as a reliever, and you throw him Friday and Sunday. So you're really getting one of your best arms on Friday to close the game, your best arm starting Saturday, and then you can have your best guy coming in again on Sunday. And Tadlock has done that in the past. Remember, when did Gingery throw? Saturday. I think we had Birdsell through Saturday. Right now, I think I have Mason Molina as this is not accounting for who you're playing or the park. As Mason Molina is graded out as the number one pitcher in the Big 12 right now. We throw him on Saturday. So Tadlock does that. And so I could see Robinson maybe going back to Friday. And then what you do is you throw Girton. You can use him to close out Friday, throw 4 or 5 innings if you need him, or he throws 2 and he throw him again Sunday. And then you have Molina on Saturday. I don't know if that's what we'll do. I think that was our plan coming into the season, was to do that.
I mean, that is before Kyle Robinson struggled in the season opener. Girton looked really good in what essentially was long relief. I mean, he was more or less your de facto starter that day. But I do think I've always thought there's really some truth to like the same guy, the same day of the week, just looks better coming out of the pen instead of starting. And maybe Girton's one of those guys, and if he is, and you can use him out of the pen on both Friday and Sunday, maybe that's a good way to get some mileage out of his arm while also leaving some of the other guys that are capable starters in the rotation.
Yeah, and generally the first innings are lower leverage, so you can throw Girton like when you really want him, like when you have a 1 or 2 run lead on a Friday night. Okay, we can put him in the 6th inning and he can theoretically close the game, as opposed to throwing him early in the game on a Friday. But if you don't have somebody to start the game on Friday, then you got to roll him out there, which I think we're maybe in between that, because I mean I thought the radar gun there was a more realistic than what you see at Dan Law, because Dan Law everybody's throwing 97 when they come out, but they're like Trenton Parrish was 91, 92, and Robinson last night 60th pitch was 95. I mean he's got legit stuff. I mean I know I can see why we rolled him out there on the first Friday of the year.
Catching up on some comments. Did you wear that same camo hoodie last night? No, I did not. Just wore it today. Road trip hoodie. Short sleeves. It's nice. Big Hint says, I call Tech Hoops guy Tech Baseball guy because he knows stickball. And then another comment that says you look like Ben Affleck. Have you ever gotten that before?
I've never gotten that. The only thing I've ever got is Dane Cook.
Okay.
And I've gotten that I look like a catfish. And like multiple people who don't know each other independently have told me that. So it's got to be, there's some merit to that one.
I can see Ben Affleck. I can see Dane Cook. I don't get the catfish thing.
We need somebody in the chat to give us a start bench cut Ben Affleck films for later in the episode. We can add that to the mailbag.
Okay. And then Dwayne is back, and glad you're doing well, Dwayne. He's a longtime commenter here. A little beef with me, I think. I'm not sure. I can't really tell from his comments. He seems to like me, but then he throws backhanded compliments all the time. Kyle, from the broadcast, what did the guys there think about Tech baseball? Both Tech Hoops guy and I were there. So, any comments or suggestions that they made that made you think?
I was a little bit in and out all weekend because I was unpacking at the new house. They definitely sort of echoed the sentiments that we've heard for many years with just how Tadlock builds his lineups, which is the philosophy: if you can hit, we'll find somewhere for you to stand. They kind of referenced that, and I think it was just a testament to how potent the lineup is top to bottom. And even though that didn't necessarily translate to a ton of runs, like y'all alluded to, there were some really well hit balls that are maybe off the fence or out of the park at a lot of the ballparks you're going to be playing at throughout the regular season. So, there's a lot of love for the lineup. But I listened to a decent amount of it on the radio broadcast, and so I wasn't really getting a third-party perspective. It was the Tech guys who called the game. So, unfortunately, I don't have a ton of intel there.
Ran into Gus in the bathroom during the game. So, if you wanted to know. Any other thoughts on the baseball weekend, Tech Hoops guy?
I don't know what's going on with Owen Washburn. He's got to be hurt, right? I mean, this is a guy that started it. I mean, from the beginning last year. I think he was a freshman All-American, and he just looked like a guy that you've seen over the years, where you're like, this guy's going to play. He's going to be a top 10 round pick. He's going to play here as soon as he's draft eligible. He's going to be gone. And I mean, I have no idea. Something's going on. I was watching him. I mean, he's in the dugout and he's into the game, but I don't know what's the issue is there.
I know Gage Harrelson has played well.
I'm just like an at bat. He had an at bat, I think, a pinch hit midweek against Air Force. But I mean, you play 30 something innings, and you've got some guys hitting, that are really young and that had not had very competitive at bats, and you would think he would get at least a shot. But something must. I mean, I'm not going to question Tadlock.
Right.
I just think that's odd.
Well, especially with Jarrett Curtis coming into pinch run and then getting a couple at bats in the end. I mean, he had played 16 innings. You had a lot of pinch hits. Surely he could have swung somewhere.
Yeah, and they had a lefty throwing towards the end of that game, so it didn't make a ton of sense at that point. But so maybe that was it. Maybe if they weren't throwing a lefty, we got just all out of sorts. We had Austin Green got hurt, and so he's a switch hitter, and so we put in a younger guy who I'm pretty positive is a lefty. We got so left-handed heavy that we just didn't have any other button to push at that point. Yeah.
Looking ahead to Iowa, you think Tech can take 2 of 3 there?
I would make it. I would make us favored without a doubt. That we're a better team. They have looked really good. They lost a ton from last year, like a lot. I thought they would not be very good, but they have looked good so far. And I think they won a series, maybe even swept South Alabama. They looked really good in Round Rock, and they just got these 3 guys on the mound. Mainly the Saturday guy. So that'll be Molina versus this guy will be like one of the premier pitching matchups in the whole across the country. I mean, it really will be. I like Molina was talking a lot of noise. I'm liking against Michigan. I mean, he was like doing some extracurricular motions. So that'll be good. I mean, so I'd make us favorite. I mean, we should win 2 out of 3.
I think you split with them last year, had a canceled game.
Yeah.
This is the return trip to Lubbock, so should be good baseball. And then Big 12 play. What are your thoughts on some of the top teams in Big 12 play? Oklahoma State, TCU. TCU looked good this weekend. I believe
TCU's
they won
good.
2 of 3. They're really good.
They are good. I mean, I'd say they're similar to us, but they've got, what's interesting is a lot of the teams in the Big 12 have done their Friday night guy is a transfer that they brought in. So Oklahoma State got arguably many people think he's like the premier transfer arm of this past cycle. He'll be a first round pick from Long Beach or Santa Barbara. Warren Watts Brown. He's their Friday night guy. TCU has a transfer from Kansas who throws 100 miles an hour, and he's their Friday night guy. Kansas, their entire rotation is transfers. Tech didn't really do that this year. But Oklahoma State and TCU probably have a starting pitching advantage over Tech slightly right now. Maybe not Oklahoma State, but their lineup is probably better. They have a very old lineup. They pretty much returned everybody from last year. It's Tech, Oklahoma State, TCU to me are a clear top 3, and it'd be hard for me to. I would probably have Tech third, but it's a very small margin. I mean, if you were putting odds, there would be virtually no difference there between those 3 teams. I really kind of need to look at. Because this isn't something you can bet. You can't bet on who's going to win the regular season. It's not. I haven't looked at schedule luck, or who's playing where. But then even Texas, I mean, I know they've lost, but they've got their midweek guy. I watched them. They played LSU in a midweek this past week, and they've got a guy who's throwing 96 miles an hour deep into the game against the best lineup in the country. And so it's LeBaron Johnson is his name. So I mean, they've got guys. It's Texas, it's a classic thing you always say about them in pretty much every sport, but we know they're going to underperform because it's Texas. So how do you kind of gauge that too? But I would have them 4th behind those 3. And Kansas State is sneaky, not bad, which is surprising because they lost a lot of people. Baylor is absolutely terrible.
Yes.
Kansas is not very good. West Virginia is actually competitive. They have really good pitching. They must have a good coach because they're always punching above their weight. It seems like very athletic team. And so I'm excited to see it play out. I probably should have looked to see who plays where. I'm not even sure like Tech schedule of who we like. I know we go to Austin. I know we should get TCU and Lubbock.
Oklahoma
And
State
Schedule
and
breaks
Lubbock as
down
well.
really weird because the 4 teams picked preseason as the 4 best: Oklahoma State, Texas, TCU, OU. Those are the first 4 Big 12 series that we play, and then the back half of the schedule, your final 4 series is Kansas, Kansas State, Baylor, West Virginia in some order. So it's a very front-loaded schedule. At least if those preseason predictions come to fruition in any kind of way.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things, like if you can survive the first 4 series and be like 500, then you can make a run at it if you can punch down at some of the lesser teams in the conference.
Yeah. OU has taken, in my opinion, a pretty significant step back. They played well this past weekend. I think they were in Frisco, and I know they beat Mississippi State, and it was a pitcher that I bet on Mississippi State. So I obviously liked Mississippi State in that spot. But I mean, they have, one of their weekend pitchers is Jamie, from Tech guy from last year. There's a couple teams actually in the big. Kansas State's midweek guy is a Tech. Shea Hardis is his name. OU is their pitching, which is odd because they're kind of their coach is like a pitching guru guy, but they're not. It's not at the level of Tech, TCU, and UT and Oklahoma State. Really, Tech is interesting. Like there's a kind of a revolution in college baseball, really all baseball. And if you read message boards, people get frustrated with it. It's like something that people really nail Tech on from like Tech fans' perspective. And it's actually like something I like, and it's throwing hard. Like, oh, wow, how that's not exactly like, it doesn't take a genius to think that to prioritize like stuff over command. And, you'll see Tech in these midweek games where we'll have an 8-hole hitter will be up and it's like 3-0 and we're throwing sliders, and it's 2-0 and we don't throw many fastballs. In fact, I was looking, this was going into this past weekend against Gonzaga. I think it was the 4th game, is the fewest amount of fastballs thrown by a Power 5 team in the entire country. And that only includes TrackMan games.
Wow.
So the fewest fastballs thrown by a Power 5 team is Texas Tech versus Gonzaga, which is, normally you'd see that maybe against, if we're playing like LSU or someone, and we're throwing someone who doesn't throw that hard. No, our guys throw hard. We throw really hard and we throw sliders. And in baseball, that is kind of the movement is people that throw really hard, that move a lot, are tougher to hit. And even if they can't throw strikes that well, that's fine, because sometimes batters swing at balls, and when they're on, they're on. So that you prioritize stuff over command, and Tech has done that for a long time. I mean, how often have you think back of some of these Tech pitchers where you're like kind of get frustrated about their abilities to throw strikes, but yet they throw really hard, and yet that's how we roll, And what I like about our philosophy is we stick to it. So when we're playing Western Illinois against their 8-hole hitter, and we're putting our guys in these positions where they're having to throw off-speed sliders for a strike in a hitter's count, and it's because Tadlock is not trying to strike out, Western Illinois' 8-hole hitter in February. He's trying to strike out Arkansas's 3-hole hitter in the Super Regional when, like, you can't throw this guy a fastball. Okay, you're playing in Dan Law, where if the ball gets barreled up, it's gone. Like, you can't just put one over the middle to this guy. You got to like throw something that has some break to it, and that so we're just sticking to our guns. And you can't knock Tadlock's the success he's had doing this.
Yeah, that's another point just on the Bravo inning. You're not pitching him because it's A&M and it's Minute Maid and you think he's the best guy to put out there. You're seeing if he can handle that situation in 2 months in Big 12 play. Like, you have to give these guys, especially freshmen, opportunities in big moments to see if they can cash in.
I agree.
So
exactly. And also, speaking of that, our guy got screwed, Jacob Rogers, a freshman, the guy we put in that had the errors, and he's from Friendswood. And I don't know if you noticed at the game, there were some guys down the right field line, and they were wearing maroon. So you would have thought they were Aggie, but they were really in high school gear, and they were just going nuts when Rogers came in to pitch.
Yes.
And it was his family was sitting a little bit behind me, and he threw well. I mean, that was not his fault. The way that went down was not his fault.
Yeah, I thought he pitched well. I mean, he got 2 ground balls right to the shortstop.
Exactly. Yeah. And our poor shortstop, he was sitting there for 5 hours with me, and then he's got to go out there and play, and the guy hits a sharply hit ball at him.
Yeah.
It's tough. Baseball is a tough game, especially when you're a senior in high school playing in Minute Maid against A&M in the 16th inning.
Yeah.
It's a tough game.
I came away, even how the game ended, I came away more impressed with Texas Tech baseball this weekend than I even was against Western Illinois or Gonzaga. Really high on this team. Also really high on TCU. Also higher and higher on Oklahoma State as they go on. I thought they started a little rough. But Oklahoma State at home, then you go to Austin, and then you get TCU in Lubbock. And then it's like North Dakota State on a weekend and Stanford, and then I think in Norman. So it's kind of a weird schedule.
Yeah.
And then,
Those
as you
first
said,
3
Kyle,
weeks are gonna be
the rest of them. So,
I mean, 5 and 6 and 3 or 5 would be outstanding. Those first 3 weekends sounds like, if it's Oklahoma State, UT, TCU. I think 5 and 4 actually may. Well, you play two of those series are at home, so you probably need to win at least 2 of those series, and yeah.
So if I gave you 5.5 wins,
I think that would be it. I think that's a good. It'd be -110 on both sides. I'd probably take the under, unfortunately, but I don't feel great about that. That's a good line.
that's going to be really tough. But again, it also, you're coming off a sweep against TCU. And then did you sweep Oklahoma State last year?
There's no way.
I think you did. In
did.
Stillwater.
In Stillwater.
And then Oklahoma swept you, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, because you were way behind in the Big 12, and then you kind of caught up because you swept Oklahoma State, and then they got hot again.
Oh yeah, they were nearly unbeatable in Stillwater. That kind of blows my mind.
Yeah. So there you go. Those are going to be chippy, maybe both those series. I think.
Speaking of chip, this team is not as chippy as you usually see a Tadlock team, which is it's so odd. If you listened, you would never expect Tadlock, his personality, to create a team that kind of talks as much noise as Tech baseball has in the last couple of years. But we have been like that has kind of been our our personality. But this team is not like that. They're much more, they don't have like they don't have the individualized like doubles celebration. They all do the kind of the Lane Frost. They don't have kind of the same, you don't have Jace Young like flipping off everybody when he hits a home run. I mean, it's a little different personalities on this team.
Except for Trendon Parrish.
Well, I was going to say some of the pitchers.
Parrish. Yeah. Parrish is my guy for that reason. He's going to let you know about it.
And Ryan Free gets a little hot too. He does the exaggerated step over the baseline, or the baseline.
He does that. Yeah. I saw that.
Run line,
he does like it's a high rider, like a tightrope or something. He's going over. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, he does. But just because they're not chippy doesn't mean they're not energized. They're really focused and excited. But I agree. There's not as much shit talking. There's no Jace Young. And Jace Young, after the slide home, the stolen home base steal, is like dragging the crowd over to the Texas dugout to celebrate. Nobody's doing that this year, but I would assume that the TCU series will be pretty electric.
Definitely.
I hope.
Definitely.
Yeah.
They've got some guys. Yeah. That'll be a really big series. In fact, I'd with us having Oklahoma State at home, I would probably have the winner of that series after that weekend, the favorite to win the regular season championship. I don't know if I'm sure Oklahoma State gets TCU at home, considering what we just said, but assuming that's the case, yeah.
Yeah, and I hope that one. I kind of hope that series is early too, just so we can kind of see what's happening through the first half of the Big 12, and then kind of reassess with everybody else coming down the stretch. You mentioned earlier a couple of balls were smoked. Kyle, what do you prefer to be smoked?
Some good old-fashioned Rahino barbecue, which you can find out in Olton, Texas, or going all across West Texas in their mobile food truck. Give them a follow on social at Rahino BBQ, order ahead at RehinoBBQ.com. The lines do form early, and they're very long, so to make sure your food is there when you arrive, order on their website. But, yeah, if you're looking for stuff that's smoked, head to Danlaw Field in the bottom half of the inning, any given inning, or head to Rehino Barbecue. It's a pretty good segue there, Rob.
Thank you. I try. Anything in basketball you want to talk about?
So I think we can jump past, because Ryan and I talked about this last night, the whole Mark Adams reaction, and I think he's going to be fired. Tech Hoops guy, if you disagree, you can counterpoint that, but let's assume that he's fired and you're doing a coaching search. If you can go with me on that assumption, what direction do you want to see this go?
That's a good question. Do I want to see it go, or most likely to go?
Give me both.
Could be two. So I think the starting point would be Grant McCasland, and that's the North Texas coach, Baylor guy. He kind of infamously sent his whole staff to Lubbock a couple years ago, and they carbon copied our defense, and they've done it very well. Definitely better than us this year, arguably better than us. And no, not last year, but they stole our defense like everybody else. And he's paired it with McCasland was a name 2 years ago that people were talking about. And so I bet college basketball too. I don't bet it personally, but I bet for people. I give them my baseball, they give me their basketball. And as a result, I'm familiar with some of North Texas's totals. And we'll play Kansas or we'll play West Virginia, and the total will be maybe 142 or something. So 70, 72 expected implied score. North Texas will play, and their total will be 107. So 30 to 40 points less are expected to be scored. And that's comparing to a Tech team that many would claim can't run offense. McCasland's offense makes, and I said this earlier, makes Chris Beard's offense look like an N1 mixtape. In terms of the pace and the tempo, it's literally it's one of the slowest paced offenses you'll see. And that's not a knock, because I don't care. A lot of people care about, they want to see points, and they equate a lot of points to running good offense, which is not always the case, because tempo is a factor, right? But they're not going to see that with McCasland unless he just totally changes. So it's a slow. I don't think people who are clamoring for McCasland quite understand what they're getting into from an offensive standpoint.
It does, though. With Texas Tech and the offensive side the last, let's say, 6 years, it doesn't necessarily feel deliberate. It just feels like a result of the defense. McCasland's offense at least feels deliberate. He's doing it on purpose. Right. They're not just bad offensively like Tech has been.
You're right. I agree. And it also, what you're saying, that pairs well with that defense. If you're running it correctly, if you're forcing them into a really long possession that's uncomfortable for them, and then on the other end, you make them sit in a defensive stance for 26 seconds every possession, then that can be a grind. And in fact, that's what we did to people. That's when we went to the Final Four, that's what we were doing to people. And so, yeah, but you watch, if we hire him, people are going to be freaking out when the scores, when it's a 43 to 42 game, they're going to be freaking out.
So other end of the spectrum, philosophy wise, is a guy with a similar last name, and I think people maybe get them mixed up sometimes. But Ben McCollum from Northwest Missouri State, and that's it's a jump, because he's at the D2 level, but he's had tremendous success there, and he is offensively what all these defensive wizards are in their own right on the opposite end of the floor. Do you think that's a jump he's capable of making? Is that something you have any appetite for?
Yeah, when you asked me the question, that would be my pick. Just because I think he's so unique and what he's done at the. People probably have never heard of him. His name is Ben McCollum is his name. People, if there's an athletic article about him with actually Mark Adams quoted as saying this is the best offensive mind I've ever seen. I think he's visited him and at one point even kind of courted him as an assistant coach here. I would do him. It's him and another guy, Pat Kelsey at Charleston, who is McCollum and Kelsey have a very similar philosophy in terms of pace, and shooting threes a lot. He actually signed Adonis Arms at Winthrop. He plays a ton of guys. Yeah, I would. My first call would be to that D2 coach, and I think people would freak out about that. Like the first time that anything was going wrong, it'd be, why do we have a D2 coach? I mean, think of the arguments against Matt Wells. You know, it's he's never done it before. It's not a Power 5 guy.
Or even Joey McGuire. Like, I mean,
True.
I think the people that were like diehard on the message boards and on Twitter knew who he was, but a different segment of the fan base was like, who is this guy? And yeah, first sign of anything going wrong versus NC State, they were like, oh, here we go, high school coach.
Yeah.
And so there would be some people that, you know, you'd have to win over PR wise, but, you know, I don't care about that. Like, I was fine to hire Joey McGuire and deal with that high school coach label. And so if McCollum's the right guy for the job, I don't have any qualms with him not necessarily having coached at this level before. So I'm count me in the camp as very intrigued by that name.
Definitely.
Do you think
Your hands
McCaslin? Do you think? Sorry. Do you think McCaslin has Latrelled himself at UNT? It just happens that they're at the same university, but I thought McCaslin should have left 2 years ago. And he kind of stayed there. Was not very good last year. Has not won a lot this year, I don't think. They could have gotten hot in the last couple of weeks, but last I checked, a month ago, they weren't. I guess electric.
It's arguably his best year this year.
Has it been? Okay.
Yeah, it's his highest. I'm looking at this is the guys who bet basketball. I mean, this is the best team they've got him having. It's not by a ton. I mean, it's just a slim margin, but he's 25-6, 16-4 in the conference. He's got a top 30 defense. He's got a really good mix. You know, they're not a one-trick pony. But I think I agree that he's going to do that at some point, in my opinion. Maybe not. I don't know about conference realignment and if their conference is getting tougher or easier, because that's a bigger factor than his abilities as a coach. You know, if they swirl around and they're playing Memphis and SMU instead of Troy, you know, that's going to be a factor.
Yeah, and they're moving up to AAC. So.
Oh, they are?
Uh-huh.
Oh, then he needs to get out. Yeah, he needs to get out of there.
Yeah, that's much. It's a football conference now. It has been, but it is even more with Houston leaving.
I don't know how feasible some of this might be, but like Rob has his username right now is Will Wade Enthusiast, and mine says bring Sean Miller home. Those are two names I've seen that you're like, hey, at least go kick the tires. I've seen Rick Pitino. You know, let's I guess take all those guys with baggage as a collective. Like, do you have any interest on trying to bring a Will Wade, Sean Miller, Rick Pitino? Like, because some of these guys, whatever they did wrong allegedly or confirmed 3 years ago, is pretty much legal now, and so I think that should be a consideration. I don't know if a guy like Will Wade or Sean Miller would take this job, but any intrigue on a name like that?
Well, I'd almost hold that against them, because maybe it was a competitive advantage when it was illegal and they were doing it when others weren't. Now everybody's doing it. I don't know a ton about Will Wade. Other than their teams at LSU were amazing and they weren't that good, and I wasn't there that long, but like their players were amazing. I mean, they had better players than us without question when we went down there and beat them the year he was there. But Sean Miller, I mean, that would be intriguing. We definitely the media would love it. I think, you know, we would win the press conference with Sean Miller. I think. I don't think so about Will Wade, and probably not with Rick Pitino.
No.
But I mean, that's a good question. I don't. It might deep down, even though I think it backfired this year for us. I would like for us to have the coach that commands the most NIL money on a consistent basis. I would want to have because I just think it. Like I said, it didn't work this year, but I think more often than not in the new Big 12, if we are having, I think we have this is our ceiling. I think we have this capability from a support standpoint. We will have the highest salary. We could have the highest salary in the new Big 12, sans Kansas. So take Kansas out, but next could be us if we have the right guy. Like if you have a guy like a Chris Beard, right, that's really focused on that, and that's to me like that's our most positive trait as a basketball program is we have this fanatical support who's willing to pay a lot of money to bring in a basketball player here. So like we need the guy that's going to leverage that the most. And so so from like a Ben McCollum standpoint, it's like he's been a D2 guy. He runs an offense it doesn't need a bunch of NBA players. It's a system. It's kind of a Leach-esque type deal. Like does that make the most sense for a team like Tech with a high NIL ceiling to bring in a guy like that? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't know, to be honest. But the guys y'all are talking about, I think Sean Miller for sure. Sean Miller would be one. Like that would really maximize our NIL opportunities. In my opinion, I don't know if McCaslin would.
No. Will Wade would, and Sean Miller would. Rick Pitino would.
Yeah, he would.
He absolutely would. Yeah. Again, I don't know if he would win the press conference. And you don't want to go from Mark Adams, who has had some rumored allegations all year with, off the court stuff.
Really?
Yeah, you don't want to go from that to Rick Pitino, or Will Wade, or Sean Miller. Maybe I think Sean Miller's the cleanest though, because the NCAA cleared him.
He did nothing wrong.
He was legit cleared.
Sean Miller did nothing wrong. Bring him home.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if home is the right word.
I'm saying bring him home. He's probably never stepped foot in Lubbock in his life.
No. But Arizona would come to the Big 12, so I guess technically it'd be the home conference.
I know that. So when they do these interviews, they put like a presentation together. Like these coaches. You remember? I think like Joey had like this mythical binder and thing that he did that everybody like fainted. It was like those healers on the telethons where everyone's like, like the Shazam, like somebody was blind and came out of there. Yeah. I heard McCaslin had one a couple of years ago, or at some point he's got one that maybe his agent floated. I don't know if he did a formal interview, but he's got one that's like, I think I can. He wants the Tech job, is like confident he can win big, has like a plan. So if he gets an interview, it wouldn't shock me for them to like be very, the powers that be, to be very intrigued by him.
Would you put him as the betting favorite to get the job?
So we don't have a basketball coach?
Let's assume.
Yeah. Yes. And actually, he'd be a betting favorite. Now the limits would be small, right? I'd only be taking like small limits on it but I would have him as the favorite. I did that as an exercise for the Wells hire, and I had Dana as a considerable favorite, and I set Bob. Like, remember? I don't know if you remember. There was like a Bob Stoops run. Everybody was like, "Oh, it's happening! It's happening!" Yeah. I had him at like some 20-1, and everybody was intrigued by the big payout. I ended up I got my ass handed to me, but if not for the Bob Stoops money that lost, because I paid out. It was on Red Raider Sports. I was taking real bets, and I got absolutely murdered because some insider got me on Matt Wells. Like I just didn't think there was any way we were going to hire him.
Yeah, I kind of remember that. Not to like go down memory lane here, but the typical candidates that like the fan base, I think, at least wanted to be front runners that were getting interviews was like Seth Luttrell, Neil Brown, Dana Holgerson. And there was like no momentum for any of those three, like no actual momentum from Kirby. It was like, and so, yeah, Matt Wells' name was always there. And I was like, okay, surely they're not going to actually go with him. So like who else is listed there? And then of course they did hire him. And I was like, well, that was a little bit out of left field, but anyway, yeah, the rest is history.
Chat says, what about Ed Cooley, Providence guy?
Does he have any ties? I do like he has a very unique offense, and I'd be making it up if I said the name. It has a name. Like if you Google you'll like 50 YouTube videos will come up, and he does something very unique offensively, and he's got interesting physique and hair, and I think he's like going to have a towel and sweat and all that going on. I honestly never thought about him. Does he have any tie? Isn't he a Northeast guy? I mean,
yeah. Does that matter as much in basketball recruiting?
No, you're right.
Yeah,
I do. An Ed Cooley type name. I'm curious now with realignment. If you're going to see coaches that would traditionally be at these basketball only schools, maybe go to like the Jamie Dixon, that kind of move because of the money. I just don't know how they'll be able to compete. Some of those schools will be able to compete with a team that's not in SEC, Big Ten, or Big 12, or the ACC.
Well, and if Arizona and Gonzaga come and Brett Yormark splits the Big 12 payout for basketball and then football, and you have a legit basketball super conference, why wouldn't you want to come coach here?
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's sneaky going to be. It's probably what would you get? Maybe a top 20 job. I mean, people don't realize how it's better than if you just polled the average like national person, they would just be way off. Yeah. Just based on the realignment. Number one is going to help Tech basketball. It's not going to help. Actually, I could make some arguments on Tech football too, but it's going to help. The one thing that I'm certain of, it's going to help Tech basketball. And I think I don't think the average person understands like the commitment that Tech would be willing to make to somebody that wins and wants to be here. Like it's on a level that's equivalent to just name the program. Like Kansas. I mean, it really is like on that level.
And if you hired Sean Miller or let's say Will Wade, I'm mostly joking with that name, maybe McCaslin, but certainly Sean Miller. Let's just say you hired him. You would pay him $4.5 million like you were paying Chris Beard, or at least get closer to that. It wouldn't be the $2.5 million you paid Mark Adams because nobody else is coming after Mark Adams. Like there's some demand for Sean Miller, and you can pay that. And if he wins, you'll give him a raise because that's what Kirby Hocutt does.
I think that's what, going back to like the misalignment from the national perspective to reality, from the outside looking in, people just assume that Texas probably money whipped Chris Beard and that's why he left because they're a bigger school with more money. He took the same amount of money he was making here.
Arguably a pay cut.
I was going to say, surely our guys offered him more than he was making to stay, and he basically probably turned down 6 with us to go make 5.5 with them. So yeah, in that sense, it was a pay cut. And he was going to be making literal top 5 money had he stayed. Like it was going to be like Calipari, Coach K, Bill Self, Chris Beard, like maybe one other guy in there. And so, and honestly, after the Final Four run, he was 500 in Big 12 play over the next 2 seasons, and we were willing to fork over that kind of money. So, yeah, for the right candidate, like this should be an enticing job because if you win 25 games here, you will get paid top 10 money in the country.
Yeah. And really, it's probably. Total coaches' money pool and managers and like annual budget, like that's the number that a coach would be more interested in, and that's the number that we would be, like you're saying, as competitive as if you command it, if you deserve it, you're going to get it. You will get as much as you want, as much resources as you can possibly need or want, and like with NIL, I mean that is. Because in the past, like 10 years ago, I think there was a legitimate argument to be made that Tech was one of the worst Power 5 jobs, and it had to do with recruiting. Because without NIL and without a Beard-like personality, it would be difficult to recruit to Tech. And that was back when Texas basketball has changed a lot. Like DFW has suddenly became this like the best high school basketball in the world, you could even say that. And so that wasn't really the case 15 years ago, and now it is. And now you've got Tech willing to pay all this money in NIL, and it's crazy the turn that if you just from now to 20 years ago, the difference is just insane. We didn't even talk about facilities yet either.
Yeah, that is a really good point. Like I know that we're sort of insulated looking at Texas Tech, but TCU, I think I have this right. I don't think they've reached a Sweet 16 since like the civil rights era. Baylor basketball was nothing before Scott Drew got there. They're winning a natty. Texas Tech making a Final Four, making a national title game appearance. So yeah, it has kind of been an entire statewide movement in a lot of ways. And it's all been relatively recently.
And you have some success at North Texas. You have Houston, who's been to some Final Fours. Texas won a tournament game.
Did they?
They did last year, yeah.
Oh yeah, they did, yeah. Wow.
One tournament game. Virginia Tech? Did they win
Virginia
2?
Tech.
No, they just won 1.
Yeah, no, they lost to Purdue.
Second round in Purdue. They
That's
got
right.
a tough matchup.
All right, you want to run through some mailbag? Oh, I had one more basketball question. Your thoughts on Corey Williams being named the interim?
No, my only thought is, to me, I think he coaches the most. I mean, you can. I've been to some games, and then even I think it was Oklahoma State on the road that we lost. Not this past one, but the one before. I mean, just from a random fan watching our bench, he wants. It just gave me the impression that he was coaching more than anyone, wanted to win more than anyone. So that from that point, it makes sense. He's also I think he's the only guy on our staff that, besides Sean Sutton, was a head coach. So
yeah, I also thought maybe that could have been a player thing. Like, hey, guys, who do you want to be the interim? Because when you're in that situation, you have 2 team meetings in one weekend. I feel like you're also trying to keep the team together a little bit. That's me inferring and looking into it and trying to jump some conclusions there. But that could be another thing that they said, hey, who do you want? Corey? All right, let's do it.
Speaking of meetings, I heard our head coach skipped a 4:00 meeting with the head guy today. Didn't show. No show. I don't know if that's true or not, but I heard it from someone who has been right frequently.
You're saying Adams skipped the 4 o'clock
Our
with
former
Kirby?
head coach?
Yeah. That's what I heard. And like I said, it's from a guy that has been right on things that no one knew about. Just like one, for example, would be when Shannon had eligibility issues. He was the first person, and like that wasn't public.
Wow.
And there's been other examples too, but
I mean, Rob, if we're going to engage in the rumor mill here, do we want to share what was screenshotted and sent to us earlier in the Discord?
Yeah.
Somebody, I guess, with connections to the program said that like the investigation was done. And I think the quote was, "It went how you thought it would, or how you'd imagine
I
it would."
expected, yeah.
I don't have any imagination of how it went, really. Other than, I guess, poorly.
Yeah, I think they were coming from the expectation going in that it was more or less a formality, and like they knew what the outcome was going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty convenient. It's convenient for us, to be honest.
Yep.
So, if you're someone who wanted him gone, because I don't think anybody was willing to write the check.
Well, what's crazy is nothing on anyone's account has been denied ever. Even Mark Adams, who's talking to Goodman,
Which
immediately after it happens, like, no, I didn't apologize. I just clarified.
Well, and the
Okay.
on the spitting allegation, the only semi-denial he offered was what he said afterward when confronted with that accusation of like, hey, did you say that you told the player you can spit on whoever you want whenever you want? He said, well, I don't remember saying that.
Which is not that's not a denial.
So he didn't say, no, I didn't spit on him, and no, I didn't say that. Like, huge cop out. And I feel like you would remember one way or the other whether or not you said that to somebody.
Yeah.
And I made that point to Ryan when we were recording last night, but like, Rob, if you asked me right now, hey, Kyle, have you ever said to somebody that you can spit on whoever you want whenever you want? I'd be like, I'm 100% sure that has never come out of my mouth, because I don't say that kind of thing to people.
I didn't get to be on with y'all last night. Just 2 things here. If you have to tell a group of men that you are in charge of, like by paycheck in charge of, that there is a dynamic that they should be falling in line, you're not in charge. You don't have command. You've lost it. If you have to tell people you're in charge, that's like the Bane thing. Do you feel in charge, Mark? So the locker room is lost, in my opinion, just because he had to say something like that.
Yeah. Or at least with that one player, right?
To that one player, yeah. Because he's obviously not in line, whatever. Just reading into it again. Also, if you are in somebody's face screaming, and I'm assuming there was a cough drop there because he did say I was sick, and then...
Why did he say slobber? If someone made that allegation, I would not use the term, a little slobber.
That's one of those old guy things that slobbering is a little different connotation nowadays, I think. But he slobbers on a guy, and then here's how I feel like it played out. It's like, hey, coach, you don't got to spit on me. He's like, I can spit on whoever I want, just in the moment. Like, he didn't hock a loogie on the kid.
No.
He's just screaming in his face and spittle is flying. And if he's sick, why is he in somebody's face anyways?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to catch y'all's episode. So y'all actually went into this because this is tough. I mean, it's religion, racism.
So,
I mean, this is kind of some tricky
Yeah.
waters to navigate if you're trying to like give an opinion. Because I'm kind of afraid to tell anyone. Like my mom was like called me today while I was driving back from Minute Maid, and I was very coy with her, even my own mother, in terms of trying to give my thoughts on this situation.
Yeah, I mean, without going like way into a theological discussion here, I think reasonable people can understand the point he was trying to make. And like there is scripture about slavery in the Bible, but there's also a lot of scripture about like teacher and student or apprentice and so I feel like he could have made a very similar point if he really had to make the point with scripture. He could have made the same point about the dynamic of like student and teacher, coach and player, without invoking slavery with what's presumably a black player because 12 of the 13 guys on the roster are black. And I think it's been somewhat openly rumored who the player is. He's black. So the most charitable reading of it to me is like inappropriate, tone deaf, needs more context. And even if that's the case, if you want to give it the most charitable interpretation, I think it does warrant an apology with the player. And Adams very explicitly said, no, I didn't apologize. Like, found out he was upset, and so I addressed it, but I didn't apologize to him. And that doesn't even go into the whole spitting thing.
Also, just on the theology of it, in most of those instances, and I'm not going to get into like, Greek translations and stuff, but the verse doesn't stop with you should submit like a servant to its master. Everybody has a master. It doesn't end there. It goes on to say, and the master submits to God in the same way. So, Mark Adams, do you think you're God in the program? Like, that's my whole thing. Like, it just seems like a power trip to bring it in that. And if he's saying, you submit to me because I'm the God of the program, that also just rubs me wrong too, because it's using a scripture to prove a point that has nothing to do with it. And again, not to get too far into the weeds here, but people who use scripture out of context are generally using it for personal gain, which does not make it scripture anymore. It's just a platitude.
It's also Old Testament, and so the New Testament is all about like abolishing the old law and establishing the new law, and so maybe it's time that we fulfill the prophecy there.
Maybe so. And also, again, and coy is a good word, but if you have an illicit affair that everyone is talking about and knows about, hey, we hadn't talked about it, but let's just say it.
Talking about?
If there's an illicit affair, allegedly, what leg do you have to stand on? Right?
Well, I mean,
so you know that was also justified with scripture.
I was going to say, if we're talking Old Testament here, he might be covered there.
True. That's
maybe he's
true.
just a very strict adherent to the Old Testament. Who knows?
And maybe so. Well, there are
in my
New
opinion,
Testament
I think
options.
if you're that heavily reliant, you may be limiting the pool of players that you can recruit. If religion is going to form such a strong pillar of how you're instructing basketball, I could see how maybe it would have its time at some point. But I just wonder if you're maybe limiting. There's only so many guys that are going to want to play for someone who's quoting scripture to them. I mean, you're limiting your pool there.
Well, and that's where, like, I am willing to at least explore the idea of, like, okay, let's give this the most charitable interpretation possible. Maybe he and this player have had spiritual conversations before, and he knows that they're on the same page in terms of what they believe in a religious sense, and he's used scripture to connect with this player in the past, all that. And maybe that's what he was just trying to do, something that they've had successful conversations, productive conversations with before, and he just used like a horrible analogy. If that's the case, I think it still warrants an apology once that player tells you, like, hey, this was an upsetting comment, that was an inappropriate analogy for you to make. Like, as the coach, as the leader of young men, it's your responsibility to earn their trust, their respect, their buy-in. And like Rob is saying, if you have to go to that length to like remind them and reinforce like, hey, here's the power dynamic, I'm in charge, then you probably haven't earned any sort of sincere or genuine respect or buy-in from these players. And so the fact that he wasn't even able to confront that response that the player had by saying like, okay, like I didn't think about it from your perspective, you're right, that was tone deaf, I shouldn't have made that analogy. But to just say like, yeah, I figured out he was upset and I didn't apologize, even if we want to give it the most charitable reading possible, I still think it falls short.
I'm curious, where do you rank? I'll put the most contemporary examples of anything like this happening are two are basketball. Creighton, Penn State coach. And are y'all familiar with what they said? And then the Oklahoma wide receiver coach. So OU wide receiver coach quoted a rap lyric that had a bad word in it. So that's one. Penn State coach had a one-on-one conversation with a player and was like, now he had just like tackled somebody on film. And so he was like catching some heat. So there's some context there. He tackled a guy, one of his players. A couple days later, he's having a one-on-one with another player and said, hey, tell me if something's coming up. I'm just trying to ease, you got a lot of pressure on you. I'm trying to, you got a noose around your neck is what he said. He got in some heat. And then Greg McDermott, he resigned, the guy who said the noose around the neck. And then McDermott had you guys need to get off the plantation, I think was something he said. So we've got OU wide receiver, rap lyric, forced resigned. Penn State guy, noose around your neck, forced resignation. McDermott, very successful, said, you guys need to get off the plantation, suspended. And then you've got Adams, currently suspended, and we know what he did. Like in terms of however you want to rank it, like egregious, offensive, intent, combine all the factors. Where does that rank? Where does Adams rank on those examples?
Making it an isolated incident, because you can't separate the power struggle inside the program and around
making it
the
isolated.
Program. Okay,
isolated.
I would probably put it less than the lyric. Probably is the. I know what he said though. I don't know.
They're all kind of similar to me. I mean,
they're very similar. Yeah.
I'd say they're. I think those are good examples to like draw on kind of as comparable deals. I think the noose one might be especially provocative. I think the lyric one, you have the debate like that word is 100% off limits.
Had players defending him though.
True, and I think like reasonable people can say that word is 100% off limits, and also say that there's probably not any malicious intent when you're quoting song lyrics versus like if you're calling somebody that name. And so again, this is where like, yeah, you'd need to consider context and like, do I think Adams is this crazy racist slave driver? No, but like that doesn't mean that it was an appropriate or okay comment in the context that it was said. But yeah, I think those are all like pretty comparable incidents to what Adams is facing, in my opinion.
Because when I first heard it, or when this was my initial reaction was like, man, this would be. I'm trying to think of the right way to say this, but not weak or. I guess I was surprised that there were other examples that were similar to this, and that the consequences were severe. Not surprised that like it's wrong or anything. I just was like, wow, this is serious. I mean, that was kind of my. Once I really kind of read some of those other examples, I'm like, oh no, for his future.
My first thought was there's got to be something else.
To what?
My first thought was when that came out, when I read the press release, so there's got to be more to it. And evidently there was, because if he's not apologizing, if he apologizes, then I don't think we are where we are.
Well, and I think the spitting accusation is also like that is Rob. I think we talked about this after the Texas Bowl, because Lane Kiffin accused one of our players of that, even though it didn't happen. But like I think you said it. Spitting on someone is like a symbol of the most like disrespectful contempt you can have for somebody spitting at them. And if this was like a cough drop, like a spray deal, that's different than like maliciously spitting on someone. But to me, it's like both of these accusations related to the same player, or at least we think, and that he hasn't offered any sort of denial or apology for either is like kind of the tipping point.
Was it not bizarre? Sorry, this is it's related, but that player, we had guys who probably played the most minutes on the team all year, our most reliable guys in the crunch time of the game on Saturday, do or die situation on the bench, Pop, O'Banner, and Harmon. And the guy who's kind of the subject of this was the only like regular starter who was in the game. I like at the time, I'm like, well, not knowing why our best players weren't playing, but now that fast forward a couple of days and I know about all this stuff that's happening, it's even more surprising that, I mean, we were running, and actually people give our staff a lot of flack. We were running plays for Tyson. I don't know if we're saying his name, that he was getting open and making the shots in some critical moments down the stretch of that game. That's just even more bizarre.
Yeah, and again, the expose, the 30 for 30, the message boards, whatever, are going to be crazy if Mark Adams does get fired. And I hope we find out more about what happened in Maui. Because at the time, that was a huge... Exactly. It was a huge story at the time. And then afterwards, everyone's like, oh, it was blown out of proportion. Nobody left the gym. Nobody quit the team. It was fine. Nobody was mad. But that week of Maui, all the stories we heard that were, circulating were there was a blow up. Everyone hates Mark Adams. The whole team's going to quit. And then at semester break, the message board thing was everyone's leaving. There's going to be 6 transfers. Everyone hates Mark Adams. And then like nothing ever happened. But then at the end of the year, hey, you guys are the servants. I'm the master. Like, let's remember that. It just all tracks, right? To me.
So I've got 2 thoughts on this. The first, I have a theory on like why the disjointed timeline and why it went down the way it did in terms of this player being a focal point as late as the last game of the season, and then this allegation or allegations coming out. I have a theory on why that went down. I'm going to save it for the Patreon only episode because it's a lot of conjecture and I don't want to do that on an overly public platform. But second, the press release, here's the circle that I'm having trouble trying to square. The press release announcing Adams' suspension calls his remarks unacceptable. If he's not fired and they say, okay, time served, you're coming back as a head coach, how do you as his employer say this was unacceptable, which by definition means like we will not tolerate it, but also like welcome back, we're going to accept and tolerate this? Like, to use that word choice, I think it was essentially set in stone that he was done, and it's just the investigation, the time in between the suspension and firing is a formality. That's why I'll be so surprised if he's not fired, or that's part of why I'll be surprised. Like, Tech didn't say, we don't know what happened, we're leaving this open, we're going to hear both. Like, they said, this is insensitive, it's unacceptable. So how do you say that and then potentially a week later bring him back and say, okay, yeah, he's still the head coach?
Was it the Goodman article that said it was the player's mom or parent that brought forth the allegation, so it wasn't the player? Or was that from somebody else?
I don't think the Goodman article said that. The Goodman article did say that when it came to Kirby's attention, Kirby contacted the family.
Okay. I don't know. You're muted again there.
Sorry about that. To answer your question, the way he comes back is it hasn't happened, but like a sincere apology, but every player publicly supporting him, being like, this isn't him. He's an old guy that was reading the Bible. This wouldn't, that's how, right? I mean,
yes,
I guess, but
that's not going to happen though.
Well, and
that's what I'm saying. It's not happening.
Yeah.
And how do you make the case that it's a sincere apology when you've already gone on the record with a national beat writer like Jeff Goodman saying, I did not apologize?
I don't know if beat writer is the proper term there, but
probably not national
Analyst.
engagement bait hack.
He's not a journalist. He's an analyst.
Yeah.
Speaking of slobbering, he was rock hard as soon as this news got in his inbox.
Oh, yeah. Well, now
this was like Christmas morning for him.
I think that's part of why he hates Texas Tech so much is because our fans give him so much grief on Twitter. Like, if you would leave him alone, one, he would get less engagement, and two, he wouldn't come after Adams, the program, everything all the time. But, like, we just keep pouring gas on that fire. And I'm like, guys, just quit quote tweeting Goodman. Like, I know y'all are dunking on him, but just leave it alone.
I think it's the opposite. I think he acts like he hates Texas Tech because we do give him the engagement.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think it's like a never-ending cycle.
A circle. Let's see. This makes all the hugs and press conferences in January even more bizarre. Don't give up on us.
It'll be less bizarre when they hear my theory on the Patreon episode later this week.
Okay. Good plug. Speaking of Patreon and Discord, how do they do that there, Kyle?
Patreon.com/GamblingGauchos. It's only $5 a month. Gets you access to some private episodes, some interviews with Red Raider legends like Sonny Cumbie, Cody Campbell, Matt Mooney, many others. Did I say access to the Discord server already?
Well, we alluded to it.
Okay. So, yeah, if you want to participate in the Diversified Lenders Discord mailbag, that's where we take the questions from. That's a lot of fun in there.
Yep.
Tech Hoops guy's been in there a few weeks. I don't know if he's usually like in there for all business, like talking odds and picks. He's not really goofing off like the rest of us, but hopefully he's enjoying the Discord.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think I got to change I don't know if you can change your name in certain Discords because my name is like it's 227 Knoxville because I live. That's just something I've had for years on Discord because when in Tech or in Lubbock, I lived at 27th in Knoxville, the cross street. So that's always been my Discord name.
We can give you a nickname for the Discord. All right, let's do it. Diversified Lenders, if you need to turn your accounts receivable into cash, call Diversified Lenders. 2 Red Raiders owned. Multiple generations of Red Raider owned. All right, we've got Tech Hoops guy coming on the pod. That's from Kyle. Is it on site with Norris Odiase? That's when he thought you were a Tech Hoops fan and not Tech Hoops guy. Common misconception there. I don't believe you would want to fight with Norris Odiase.
Absolutely not. No.
I would not either.
What's the backstory there? I don't get it.
Tech Hoops fan was saying something about what was the impetus there?
I think it was like a no call on McCullough.
Yes.
And so like he and Norris went back. Well, it wasn't that contentious or anything, but I think Norris was basically saying like, "Hey, your opinion is wrong on this."
Yeah.
So yeah, somebody thought you were.
Yeah, I have no
Tech Hoops guy. They were like, "Oh, we thought it was Tech Hoops fan," but anyway.
No beef with Norris.
What qualifies you to be the Tech Hoops guy?
Nothing. That's a good question. Yeah, no, I don't know. I'm not you guys are way more creative with your bits and your all your stuff. I wish I had that. I would have a more creative name.
That's actually
honestly, Club Pro guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm obsessed with that, and I just was blanking on what to call myself, and just Tech Hoops guy is what.
I liked
it works.
This is a bit of a deep cut, but I liked your first one, the Bullies of Broadway.
Oh yeah. That was me. My attempt at being creative.
Yeah,
and then it just that was a little wishy washy. Damn, that you've been following for a while. Then.
Yes, no, I'm a day one.
Yeah. Okay.
I also, this is kind of funny. While we're on this topic, Tech Hoops guy briefly rode at Staking the Plains with me back in the day, like I think year 1 of the Matt Wells era, so a while ago, but. I also post on Red Raider Sports and kind of like did some crossover content. Like this was all about, sorry to give too much backstory here, Rob, but why you should fair catch every single kickoff. And like, I did the math. I looked at every single time we tried to return a kickoff and how it always, on average, after 10, 20, 30 attempts was worse than taking the touchback. So anyway, posted that on Staking the Plains, posted it on Red Raider Sports. And Tech Hoops guy accidentally doxed me. Not that I was like trying to hide who I was or anything, but he was like, he like tagged me. He was like, he already posted about this at Staking the Plains. And I was like, technically they didn't know that was me, but anyway.
What's funny about that is I went to the McGuire Fantasy Camp about a month ago and did a deep dive with our special teams analytics guy, and I'm team kickoff return. Having had that, so you ought to get your information and have a meeting with Tyler Skovanek.
Okay.
And he'll set you straight.
I am absolutely on board when the athletes show up, and they are.
Yeah, I think that was part of my argument. Is like, if you have a Jakeem Grant back there, do it. But like when you've demonstrated over the course of 2 or 3 seasons that, like at best you're taking it to the 32, but all the other times you're not, like you're getting holding penalties or whatever, then just quit. But hey, I'm open to hearing what Skovanek has to say, and maybe he's got a good argument there.
When Chidarius Townsend is running right into the wedge over and over and over, it's like, hey man, let's just go catch him there. Let's see. Who's the betting favorite for the Little League World Series in August?
Oh, that's easy. Hawaii. So I'm a big Little League. So, this is like, I get triggered by all gambling content. Okay. But one of the most, if you really want to trigger me, say something like, I would never bet Little League or college baseball. And I would only, there's a thought by kind of recreational gamblers that if you have a better chance of winning if you're betting like an NFL total or a side versus Little League, and that's just complete lunacy. And the way so right now and I'll use one of the legal places I bet at, the Bet Online. Like Bet Online right now is taking $20,000 on an NBA side, $20,000. You know what they take on a college baseball side? $250. That's the max you can bet, and I can't bet that there. But a normal person could bet that $250. Tell me, what do you think they're more confident in their numbers? The one where they're taking $20,000 a pop or $250 a pop? It's the $20,000. That's the one. You're not getting the best of it if you're betting into a market where they're taking that big of bets. But when you talk about Little League, where the max bet is $100, most likely, like you can actually win. But to answer that guy's question, Hawaii they're built differently out there. I think honestly, what it really is select baseball has just gutted Little League in the United States. So when Texas, Abilene always has a team. They're like, it's not the best players from Abilene. And when Houston or Nolensville, Tennessee, it's not actually their best 12-year-olds, but like Hawaii, it's the real deal. It's their best players. So it's not even fair. Hawaii I would probably make Hawaii, without even having seen their team yet, I'd probably make them like minus 400, literally, to win the United States, just right now, just off the cuff.
First of all,
did you?
I love that you had an answer for that this early.
Yeah, this early.
Yeah.
Literally, I'm telling you, people really don't. Literally, the rules they have very set rules about pitching. If you throw a certain amount of pitches, you can't pitch the next day. So you can, with a lot of accuracy, predict who's pitching. And if you're someone like me who's with some time on your hands, you can, number one, watch them pitch so you have an idea. But also, baseball's crazy. Like the amount of money and select. These 12-year-old kids have perfectgame.com profiles. Yeah. So I'll be able to go on and be like, okay, I know this kid from Arizona is pitching against this kid. And I'll look and I'll be like, okay, 2 months ago, they were at the same combine, the same perfect game showcase. This kid was throwing 72. This kid was throwing 64. And I'll look at the odds and I'm like, wow, the kid who's throws 72 is a 3-1 underdog. All right. Something it doesn't take a genius to like do this. It's just who throws harder. Bet on that guy. Bet on the team throwing the hardest.
It's full circle.
This is amazing content.
It's great. Yeah, it's galaxy level brain stuff. Some of you, it's probably over the heads of most of your listeners.
Did you make any money on Danny Almonte back in the day, circa 2003?
That was before my time.
Yeah.
I am 12.
I started betting Little League probably 5 years ago. Seriously betting it, and when I say seriously betting it, I'm talking like a network of over 50 people in the United States are betting these games.
So 2 things before I forget. You'll like this, Tech Hoops guy. Rob and I sponsored a Lubbock Little League team last season. They had a Gambling Gauchos patch on their sleeves.
Oh, my God.
And because we're like a sports betting themed podcast, there are like rules on obviously who can sponsor a Little League team. Like you can't have Miller Lite on the jersey patches. So this, like our sponsorship went all the way to like the chairman of the National Little League board and it got approval, and then it also required like voter approval from the parents on the team.
Yeah.
But it went through, and so we're teaching them young, responsible gambling habits, and
that's great. So hopefully, and I don't know if you're familiar with Little League. There's the World Series, they all get your uniform. So like Metro Atlantic has like teal and purple, like that's their uniforms. Even if their Little League team was green or something, but in the regionals they have just kind of the local whatever they've got, and so it'd be hilarious if whatever Little League that y'all had, if that was the team, like I'd be. Oh yeah. They probably wouldn't even put lines up just because, whoever's putting lines up for these games might be weary of some team gambling gauchos on it.
Yeah,
that'd be hilarious.
It can be intimidating. Am I Tech Hoops guy? Am I allowed to tell the Baron Morton story from this past football season?
Yeah. Or if you want, yeah. So okay, Rob, you want me to tell it or you to tell it?
Well, my side of it. We can do both. Okay. Rob, I don't even know if you're aware, because this was like one of those times where, I guess it was a Friday. You were like probably calling high school football, and so I had the keys to the liquor cabinet on the Twitter account, and we got some intel that Baron Morton was starting on Saturday in Stillwater against Oklahoma State, and I was like, we don't get news a lot, so I was like, surely this is on Red Raider Sports or somewhere, and I like check the message boards, like nobody has this, and I was like, we can't, like, we're not in a position to break this, like we only have one source who's saying this, and like we're not journalists. I was like, I'm not about to put this on Twitter, so I did one of the acronyms,
TKEFIS.
Yes, the kid from Eastland is starting. I think there was a T at the end tomorrow, because I knew if I put his initials BM, like people were like, oh, what's Baron Morton? So I thought the kid from Eastland was a good, but Tech Hoops guy figured out exactly what I was saying. He like DM'd the Gauchos. He was like, don't you dare say anything about this. He was like,
so my perspective is, let me tell my perspective. Yeah. So my perspective is I get the information as well. And I bet, I don't really bet a ton of college football, like the stuff that y'all bet, like the normies. I bet like FCS football. And I do some college football that people give me that I think that I know they win, but I do a lot of player props. And if you're not familiar with like player props for college football, at legal, quote unquote, legal sportsbooks, they come out earlier in the week, Thursday, Friday. But for the places that I can bet into, generally it's the day of the game. And so I hear on Friday, probably around the same time that you do, that the kid from Eastland is starting. And so my immediate reaction is to start looking at Donovan Smith props, because if you don't know how player props work, if the guy doesn't play in the game, the bet is void. So if I have an information that a quarterback is starting and one isn't, and I bet the unders on the quarterback that's not going to play, most likely it's worthless, because the bet he's never going to play and the bet's going to be voided. But I'm a Tech fan. I know Donovan Smith. I know we have our 17,000 quarterback packages. I know he's going to fucking play. He's not going to start, but he's going to get a snap. So I'm immediately calling on my team, the ones that live in Michigan and California and Vegas or New Jersey, that can bet into these legal places. And I'm like, I've got something. Can we get people to kiosks? They have these betting kiosks. That's where you like sharps bet mostly, because if you go to the counter, they'll limit you. So we call it jamming kiosks. Like you just go into these kiosks. So we had guys on Friday. I'm coordinating this. They're driving to these kiosks. We're betting Donovan under passing, Donovan under rushing, Donovan under interceptions, Donovan under passing touchdowns. And as I'm coordinating this, I'm on Telegram. I've got my tweet deck up. I see a tweet from the Gauchos, the kid from Eastland starting, and I'm like, no, because in order for me to really bet on it, I needed it to last until Saturday. We could do some damage at legal places, but I really needed my local guys to put their lines up. And so I'm like, I messaged immediately. I'm like, don't you dare say a word. I was like going way out of my way. People were asking. I'm like, nope, not true. Nope, Donovan's starting. I got him 100% about it. Donovan's Chris Level. I just called him and he told me, I'm trying to like, and then I see that and it seriously like put a fear into me. And so sure enough, so then during the game, we've had situations where we've done stuff like this and they won't believe you. They still will grade it as void. And so when Donovan got in, we're screenshotting it. And we're like, this dude played a snap at receiver in the first half. So as soon as in the first half, it was cash because he played that snap at receiver. And he actually still kind of messed with I was still kind of sweating the rushing touchdown under because we're liable to give it to him. But yeah, no, that was hilarious. That was like one of our best. It's kind of like a legendary moment from this past football season.
Yeah, I knew that obviously you were like a big sports gambler and like pretty sharp with it and everything. But when you were like, hey, I've got a guy driving from Michigan to Canada right now to place like to max out Donovan Smith unders, like you can't tell anybody this. I was like, okay, this guy's like really serious. Yeah, that was. So
some of those. What's funny is I got a call. We haven't. I'm trying to think if I should say this. We got a call from the same group who I used for that. I get a call. I don't know if we're running long or something.
You're good.
We need it. This was on. It was the day that the Georgia player had his deal. The Georgia defensive lineman who had the killed it, whatever, racing and stuff. And so the same group that helped me with the Donovan stuff, they now know I'm like a Texas Tech guy, tech expert. So I get a call from these guys, and these guys are like, they take bets. I mean, it's probably the mob, but they do some sharp stuff too, and they bet. They've got some guys who win, and I get a call. I get a message like, hey, this guy wants to talk to you about somebody on Texas Tech's football team, and I'm like, what the hell? So I take the call, and he's like, what are the odds that Tyree Smith, because it was right when the Georgia news was breaking, they can get down on Tyree to be the first defensive player taken at 60-1. And the odds had not reacted yet to the Georgia guy going out. And they know that the Bears, I guess their intel was that the Bears really liked Tyree. And there was some scenario that so basically they're like, what can you, like, we can really make it worth your while if you can get some intel on that. So I'm like, I don't know if I can or not, but I just thought it was interesting that they're like, that's on their radar. They're asking about Tyree right now. Possibly it had something like if no one wants the Bears pick to trade, there's a chance that they might take him over Will Anderson, I guess is the theory. And that if the odds they like 60-1. They wanted to know specifically if I could tell if I know what his 40 time is. And I was like, he's got a broken foot. He's not, I don't know what his 40 time is, but
I don't know his 40 time, but he was clocked. They can measure guys' speed like during practices, and 20 miles an hour is like a key threshold they're looking for from a lot of the skilled players. And in summer camp before the season started, he was running like 19 miles an hour top speed at practice, which is insane for a guy who's 6'6", 275.
85-inch wingspan.
Yeah, so I don't know what his 40 time is, but he's plenty fast for his size.
Well, that Will Anderson ran a 4.69, I think. So he's gonna have to be. That's pretty fast. I mean, because I don't think those guys who are calling me realize that Tyree Wilson's like 280 pounds. Yeah. I mean, he's a monster. Like he's not a Von Miller, type sprinter. He's a freak. Tyree's a freak, but
yes,
he's like a big person freak.
Yeah. All right, start bench cut. You familiar with start bench cut there, Tech Hoops guy?
Is it like right. MFK? Mary, is it the same concept?
Yeah. All right, so start bench cut, Bible verses, concussion protocol, and alcoholic coaches.
Oh, man. Alcoholic coaches would be start.
Yeah.
I think almost every coach that's successful is an alcoholic. Maybe not, but I think a lot of them are.
Probably functioning at least, huh?
And then they. So wait, what is is it just like the Tech drama? Like, am I
basically
basically
entertainment? Yeah.
Because this Bible stuff, this one isn't that entertaining, but the James stuff, the concussion stuff, kind of had some entertainment just because Leach was involved, and it was really sad, obviously, when Leach was fired because just my age. Leach had been the coach for so long. That was like a pretty significant moment of my life, honestly, him leaving. But so I'd actually start that as in terms of drama. And then I benched this most recent one. This most recent one was just boring and weird, and it's tough to comment on because it's so, religion and racism is a very tricky thing.
I would bench alcoholic coaches because you get Billy Clyde and Wallerstedt.
My first thought was Wallerstedt. I wasn't even thinking about Billy Clyde.
Yeah, so you get the double doozy there.
But never mind. I don't know if I should say that. I didn't think Wallerstedt was an alcohol deal.
Well,
yeah, that was a painkiller deal.
Yeah,
that dude was wild. My buddy played for him at Air Force, and I remember when we hired him, I was like, "Hey, what about him?" And he was like he didn't make any words. He just was like just doing these like guttural noises, and I was like, I don't know if that's good or
it turned out to not be. Well,
he blocked me on Twitter from my personal like a long time ago.
Oh, how many people do you think have you blocked?
Do what?
How many people do you think have you blocked?
I don't know. I know Kendall Briles blocked the Gauchos account.
Well, that's cool.
That's not a surprise.
So here's something I actually take pride in. Like, I do not try to troll people and like bombard their mentions or anything.
What?
Like I'm not gonna go into something like argue with all of their tweets. Like, I might quote tweet you once or whatever, but
I think you're liable to troll someone if we're being honest.
But not like a mass volume kind of deal.
Okay.
I will
only Umlang.
I will respond, but I'm not gonna like argue with you for like 50 tweets. But anyway, this TJ Altmore or whatever, this guy who's obviously being paid by the Pac-12 to shill for them during the conference realignment negotiations. This is one of those instances where I chose my words very carefully. I quote tweeted him and said that some people make it very obvious that they're being paid by the Pac-12. I didn't say he was, but he was overly sensitive to it and blocked me. And then I like this too, when Texas fans who I've never interacted with from the Gauchos account like preemptively block me because they don't want to see trash talk or whatever, I guess. Like, if you and I have argued and you don't like me and you block me, that's one thing. But if you just like seen my tweets on your timeline and you're like, oh shoot, I hope that guy never responds to me or comes up again and you block me, I think that's kind of like a badge of honor.
Yeah, I get triggered. I'm not proud of this, but I get triggered by getting blocked only because I don't do any bits. I don't come at people. I don't engage in any sort of like behavior that would like trigger anyone or should offend anyone on Twitter, at least. I'm at Tech Hoops Guy. But I've come across two people that have blocked me. One unblocked me. She's this like kind of crazy. I mean, she's some kind of crazy kind of person on Tech Twitter. She's got like a lion in her profile picture. Her name is like Sharon something. I'm telling you, I'm triggered by it because I know who these people are. But the one person is he's like a Lubbock media guy that I've never interacted with ever. And he Randy
Rosetta.
Yes, Randy Rosetta. Blocked by him. Never had any interactions. I'm going to it right now. Yeah, you're blocked. Yep.
I wouldn't think. Yeah, you're okay. So I'm going to defend myself because you said I troll people and I do bits and all that. I don't ever really do it that maliciously. I don't think. But anyway, like I try to be a lighthearted.
No, it's not malicious. It's good. It's like one of the reasons why I don't is because it's not my. If I was good at it, I'd be firing bits off and trolling all the time. But it's like just not something
I think some people just go into Twitter with like a hostile mindset, and like I'm cool with people from every Big 12 fan base who don't take it too seriously and like, okay, this guy isn't trash talking, like he's just being funny or whatever. But some people are like very sensitive to it. The only people I figured who would have blocked you, Tech Hoops Guy, because you are so like pretty much all business, is Houston fans, because they found your posts on Red Raider Sports, and they were like, oh, this guy wants us all to like get concussions and wants to commit targeting penalties, and that would be the only subset of people that I would think would not like you, but even that is just hypersensitivity.
Yeah.
I also have been blocked and unblocked and blocked and unblocked and blocked from Sharon. We get into it every once in a while. So
I don't think I've ever.
That's good. That one didn't bother me as much as the other one because I don't know what it is. You know, it's just in the back of my mind. Sometimes I lay at night and I'm like, what did I do?
He's like a high school sports guy too.
I do think it's funny. I don't think some people know how to like utilize the search function on Twitter, because when I see other people, they're like, why did Fran Fraschilla block me? And then like I'll search from their account, like looking for a Frischilla mention. And I'm like, well, like 2 weeks ago, you called him like a stupid SOB. Like, that's why he blocked you. They're like, I forgot.
See, I'll murder your family or whatever. What did I say?
Like that's what got you blocked. Like, you can search your mentions with him, and it's usually pretty clear.
I had some beef with Fran Fraschilla, but he just DM'd me. I asked him to be on the show. And he was like, "Oh, I usually help out little shows like yours or something." I was like, first of all, Fran.
He was really condescending.
But then,
really,
this is before the Gauchos. This is just the Rob Bro show on KKM. But then he was like, "But you mischaracterized something I said on the broadcast," and I was like, "What?"
Didn't you like quote him verbatim?
Yes, because he was like, "Hey, Davide Moretti's from Italy. It's not like out here in West Texas." And I was like, "Come on, Fran," just like joking. Yeah. He was like, "You mischaracter. I have family in West Texas." And I was like, "Okay, Fran, but that doesn't change the fact you said it." And all I said was Italy was different than West Texas, and you made it seem like Italy was better. Like, okay, probably, but all right. A couple of more good questions in here. Let's say the next men's basketball coach has broken 8 of the 10 commandments. Which 2 would you prefer remain unbroken? Murder?
Yeah, murder.
Thou shalt not kill. Probably one of them. I'm trying to think of the rest. Coveting, fine. Adultery, check. Steal, you can steal. Yeah, you can steal some recruits.
I wouldn't want steal, though.
Well, you can steal some recruits.
Or steal, like, concepts that okay.
It's a copycat industry.
Yeah. False gods, Lord's name in vain. Let's keep that out of the press conference. How about that? So murder and Lord's name in vain.
So you don't want Dabo?
Well, he
on the Lord's name in vain, not the because he'll invoke the Lord quite often.
Yeah, that's
maybe not in vain, but
yeah,
he's a big God guy, God squad.
Well, lie, false witness.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Let's be a truth teller. It's a truth telling program.
Yeah, that's good.
That went well for us.
So we want an adulterer who will take the Lord's name in vain, but as long as they don't lie,
and who hates their parents.
Yeah, we'll just be honest.
Isn't adultery a form of lying?
Well, if you're honest,
if you get asked about it,
we're past 100.
Maybe they're honest about it.
So we're getting into the theology part of the podcast.
Yeah. Start bench cut hoops guy, hoops fan, hoops insider.
I'm starting hoops guy.
Yeah.
Benching hoops fan.
I would also cut hoops insider. I noticed that you weren't going to say it, but I'll say it.
Well, I was pulling a Rob and just stopping after bench.
Yeah, I know.
The cut implied.
You went off on hoops insider one time. Do you remember that?
No, I didn't.
Yes.
No, I didn't. I get all this.
Y'all have beef with everyone. Is what I'm.
Yes,
it's like I don't have beef with anybody, but this one guy actually, we got in some DMs. Like every story is beef with somebody.
No. People just paint this picture that I like wake up every morning just to like ratio and troll people on Twitter, and that's not what I do.
No, it was on the pod. You hammered him pretty good.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I'll pull the tape on that one. What do you think Tim Tadlock's favorite Bible verse is? Jesus wept. He's short and sweet.
Yeah.
Dude,
I would say it'd be something about water for water the tree.
Yeah. Oh, the fig parable.
Yeah.
You
reap what you sow, so water the tree.
His interview before the game, Schlossnagel's given, it's the Shriners kid. Schlossnagel's given all these long answers, and then the kid's like, "Hey Tim, what would you say the?" We just got a new start bench coat we can't do. He said, "What would you say the keys to the game are?" And Tim just deadpans, "Play good baseball."
It's hilarious.
Like, oh, that's pretty good. Who had the bigger fall from grace, Mark Adams or Chris Beard?
Beard, not even close.
Yeah, Beard was higher. Yeah, I don't think Mark Adams reached the pinnacle like Beard did.
Although you could maybe even make an argument that Beard will be able to recover, whereas due to Mark's age, he won't. So, but I'd still go Beard.
Kyle, do you want to answer that?
Well,
Felt like you were trying to avoid it.
so like on April 1st, 2021, people hated Beard, like in a way that they won't hate Adams if and when he's fired.
Adams will
But-
have support, actually, right?
But fast forward 2 years, and now people are like, so I brought this up with Grant McCaslin that like he's a Baylor guy, and what if we get bearded by McCaslin in 5 years when Scott Drew retires? And somebody was like, hey, Final Four run, Big 12 championship in 5 years, sign me up. It's like maybe enough time has gone by where people are like now positively remembering the Beard era, at least to some extent. Whereas I think, like, okay, yeah, fault Beard for leaving for another school. But if Adams did something like horribly unethical to a player on the way out, that might leave an even worse taste in my mouth. In terms of like the sense of almost like betrayal that like he had this facade of like, oh, I'm this sweet old guy, you can trust me. He said that in his press conference. He said, you can count on me. And if this is how it ends for him, then that would be a really bad look.
That's true. I forgot about that.
Bigger.
It's yeah.
Yeah. Start bench cut. You can count on me. Mama called me home. This is home. And tortillas. Matt Wells saying tortillas.
I'm cutting tortillas.
All right. What's the back to baseball? What's the ceiling for this year's team? What's the bare minimum to consider it a successful season? And then are you I'd have to do some research. Who are the draft eligible sophomores on the team?
Yeah, I'm not going to know that one.
Yeah.
That's
We can answer that one in a couple episodes.
Yeah, because that requires knowing their age, right?
Yeah.
Ceiling. So what I like is, and generally, it seems like there's like a subset of teams that have really high-end pitching in a 3-game series. Like, because at each level of the postseason, you really need to win a 3-game series, and like bonus points for being able to go 2-0 to start. And so the season is full of games. One might be even arguably being like that Sunday game or like this New Mexico game that don't have a ton of bearing. Like if you're weak in your 4th or 5th game in a week, that's not that important. Whereas if you're really, really strong in game 1 and 2, and then you fall off, you're actually like, that's good. You want to be like really strong on the top end. And so what I'm saying is there's like a subset of teams that have legit arms in a 3-game span. And then out of those teams, it's the ones that have a lineup that has the ability to like get hot in the postseason, or to have a good enough season to be playing in a park that is really beneficial for them. Like Tech is an example of that, but Oklahoma State is one. Wake Forest is one this year, to where if you're playing them at their park, they're going to score some runs. It's just going to be really tough. So the ceiling. So having said that, I think that Tech has, like, they're in that subset of teams that has strong enough pitching in a 3-game series, and they've got the lineup that has the ability, especially because we're so young. We're talking, in June, Will Burns might be able to barrel up a 97 miles an hour fastball, and he couldn't on Sunday night. So the ceiling is high, is what I'm saying. Now there's LSU, Tennessee, Florida, Wake Forest, Vandy, even Stanford. They are kind of on a different level in terms of their top end pitching, lineup, everything. And I may be missing a couple teams too, but so that their ceiling is higher, but we're kind of in that next range of teams, and there's maybe like 15 of them that's right there. So the ceiling's high, but a lot of that depends on can we have a resume to where we're playing in Lubbock, because like we saw, you can run into some bad luck, ballpark luck, like we had this weekend, and I'd prefer to just be playing those games in Lubbock. But the next one is a tough one. Like, what is the successful season? Because like on one hand, I want to be like, well, if you host a regional, it's successful. But then if you're hosting and you don't advance, that sucks. And it's just hard, man, to winning a regional. I would say, God, that's a really tough question. I feel like if I say winning a regional is the barometer, is like, that seems too aggressive, or like too lofty, but maybe it's not. That's kind of what I want to say is just winning a regional.
I would say hosting a regional and then Omaha. Omaha's the ceiling. First weekend, last weekend, whatever it is, Omaha's the ceiling.
If I offered you plus 250 today that this team would advance past a regional, would you take it?
Man, I think that's I probably would. I think that's actually maybe fair odds. But if we get in a regional, our odds to advance will be probably lower than 250. If that makes sense. So if we get in a regional, if we're hosting, we'll be like minus 110. So
right,
that's kind of a bet for me. It seems like a bet that we're going to host. So I kind of like that. Like I think we'll host, so we'll be minus 110, and then the plus 250 will feel like a gift.
Yeah. Okay.
But
should we have started to worry about Beard's character when he kept bringing around Patino?
Rick Pitino did nothing wrong. Bring him home.
He had no idea that little black book existed. Start bench cut Ben Affleck movies. Gone Girl, The Town, The Accountant.
I didn't like The Accountant.
No.
Why did they choose those 3 Ben Affleck movies?
Kyle, those are 3 great movies you've never seen. I would start The Town, bench Gone Girl.
Okay, but like Argo won.
I would maybe have Gone Girl as my number 1 out of those.
That was
3.
a good one.
We have Argo, we have Batman, we have
Good Will Hunting. Batman is your second. Batman is your second Ben Affleck movie.
No, I'm just saying it's out there with Argo and Good Will Hunting.
I would go Good Will Hunting. What did you just say, Tech Hoops guy?
Rounders is probably my number 1 of Ben Affleck.
Rounders is Matt Damon.
He's in it. Ben Affleck's got to be in it. Matt Damon has never been. Wait, is he?
It's Matt Damon and
how is Affleck not in that?
Oh, what is his name?
Right. I just assumed Affleck, any Matt Damon movie, Affleck was in it. But.
What is that guy's name from? Shit. He is in American History X.
Goodwill. I know who you're talking about.
He's in Fight Club. Edward Norton.
Edward
Brad
Norton.
Pitt.
Yeah.
Edward Norton is the other guy. Brad Pitt.
Sorry, I was trolling a little
having
bit there.
having done this exercise, I'm not a big Ben Affleck guy.
No.
Sounds like.
And then John Malkovich. Pay that man his money. Anyways, start bench cut: soul food, Cajun food, Caribbean food.
Cajun.
Yeah, start Cajun.
I'm from Southeast Texas. I'm so Cajun.
Yeah.
And what's interesting? Oh, keep going.
Are you a shrimp boil kind of guy?
We do crawfish.
Crawfish boil?
Yeah.
Kyle hates crawfish
like
boils.
my family Easter is a crawfish boil.
Okay.
See? Some culture in here, finally. Though I prefer shrimp
What's
boils.
funny is I came to Lubbock from Southeast Texas, and someone was like, hey, there's a Cajun place. Let's go eat it. I'm like, there's no way. This is going to be terrible. And Jazz is like one of the best Cajun places I've ever had. It really is up there.
Chicken a la mer at
That's
Jazz.
it.
Can you make this pod 3 hours to help me on my drive to Kansas City tomorrow? We are at 1:53 so far, so
Jeez.
we'll figure it out.
Is this a normal?
Yeah, 150.
kind of.
150 is probably the average, honestly.
I might have to start working it in my rotation. I'm stickler on my podcasts. I feel like I only have like the capacity for so much. And to be frank with you guys, I was triggered by like the Gambling Gauchos thing. So I thought y'all were on here like take the Packers, overs, like all the
Packers.
Yeah, like all this stuff. And I'm not listening to that.
No, we don't really do that too much. It's mostly like made up props. I mean, we do pick Big 12 games. We don't tell anybody what to do with their money. Try to be careful about that.
Yeah, that really is because you got to people. I mean, most people are bet, and I bet. So I need like recreational people in the ecosystem, because they're the ones that lose, and like you got to have losers, right? But I am like, if I ever give a bet, because like sometimes I'll go on the Discord and give bets, if I ever give something out, just know that it's something that I bet that I feel confident in, that I think has an edge, that I'm risking real dollars on, you know?
I think it'd be fun if you started handicapping each episode length, and then had the patrons in the Discord give an over under on like an hour 57 or whatever.
We'd have to do that away from us, so we can't.
Right. It'd have to be a blind kind of deal.
I think a better one would be for someone to at random give like a person in tech Twitter, and I would handicap whether or not you have beef, outstanding beef with that person.
I'm not a beef guy, man. I don't want beef with everybody. But Rob's over here just pouring gasoline on that fire. Like,
no, that's the one. That's the one guy you did have some
I'm
animosity
not talking about one
towards.
guy. Like, you're always on this. Oh yeah, you're on Twitter to troll everybody and beef
I
with
don't
everybody.
throw that
and
gas.
Maybe we could manufacture some faux beef with the podcast that I'm on regularly, just to generate some interest in it, because we have our listener base is tight. I mean, it's like about
here's why we cannot have that is Red Raider Sports. I'm a subscriber there, have been for years. They're loyal to their people, which I can respect. But as soon as it was a Red Raider Sports podcast versus two idiots from the Gambling Gauchos, they'd be like, "Oh, those guys are freaking morons. We love From Here It's Potable."
So you're saying we would win? We'd win
easily.
Yes,
easily.
But two things there. One of the first comments we got was, "I'm going to tell Taylor Beatles you're cheating on him."
Oh, okay.
So
I wish I could see the comments.
We already have some beef there. That was from Ryan.
No, he's not mad, but like I was kind of stirring him up a little bit on there, because someone on Red Raider Sports asked to. Like we had an episode that we did, and it just disappeared into the nether. It never got saved or something. And so they were asking where is it? Because we took questions and it just never happened. You know, it's just kind of classic. And I was like, yeah, so I'm going on the Gauchos tonight because our podcast sucks so bad. And he responded.
I couldn't tell one time, and Rob, maybe this is on me for not perceiving when beef is there. Like, maybe everybody's beefing with me and I just can't tell, but
that's true. I think that's the case.
A long time ago, there was this triple option bit on Red Raider Sports, and there was some kind of Twitter exchange about From Here It's Potable, and I was like, yeah, they're the triple option of Texas Tech podcasts, because there's a million Texas Tech podcasts. And Tech Hoops guy tagged us and was like, yeah, we were recently referred to by the Gauchos as the triple option of
yes.
I couldn't tell if he thought that was an insult.
No, I think that was a compliment. I would have that as one of our top reviews. If I was pitching the podcast,
yeah,
it would be recently referred to.
Anyway, I think I say stuff like that sometimes and people perceive it as I'm talking trash about them, but I was just trying to play into the bit on that one.
Well, one thing for certain, you have zero beef with anyone on Red Raider Sports about the Gauchos. I think we can say that clearly.
No, there's a couple real Gauchos haters on there. I feel like the reviews are mostly okay. But yeah, there's a couple people that can't stand us.
That's just me throwing gas again.
I've seen some of that too. And what is the genesis of it? We don't need to get into it.
We might go 3 hours here. Am I allowed to say anything here, Rob?
Hey, bridges burn, man. So he already alluded to that. So say whatever you want. Yeah, say whatever you want. I don't care.
How do I want to phrase this? He's not going to listen because he hates us, but
no, he listens.
I think there's a guy on Red Raider Sports that he brings us up out of nowhere. The conversation will be about something. It'll be about TCU's athletic director. And it's a 3-page thread, and randomly the Gauchos get thrown in there. And I'm like, why are we even being brought up in this conversation? And if you search that poster's history, it's over and over. You would think that me or Rob kissed his girlfriend or something. And I'm like, why are you bringing us up in these random threads? And so one time I finally got fed up with it. It was here's 3 things that you said we did this, that's wrong. You said we stole that, that's wrong. You lied about not engaging with our Twitter account. That's wrong. And so then he got real scorched earth and was blocked us on everything from all of his burners. Was the bridge is burned.
His burners too.
Yeah, I was okay. So anyway, he's our number one hater. I don't know why. I don't know what we ever did to him. But anyway, I can deal with a lot of like fair criticism. Like if you don't like the bits, like okay, so this other guy, he just doesn't like start bench cut, and it's like okay, that's fair because we do a lot of start bench cut. If you don't like it, you're probably not going to like our Twitter account. But to just like lie about, oh, they stole this or they said this if we had never said something, that's what I can't stand. Like, don't lie about us. If you don't like it, that's fine, but don't lie about us.
Everyone's saying his name in the comments.
I've seen on Red Raider Sports, because I've actually, if you would have asked me, I would have said it was positive or majority positive reviews. But the criticism that I see is people that are anti-bit. They're like, they're too much bits. It's just all bits. It's just nothing but Twitter beef and bits.
Yeah. Well, okay, and that's another thing.
First of all, Rob. If you grew up listening to sports radio is bits.
Yes.
Like, I'm a sports radio guy. The most popular first sports radio station in the world, The Ticket, is all bits.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, we do bits. Like,
the first
sue us.
Like, the first thing that comes to mind when you say Scott Van Pelt, who's a guy I really love, is bad beats. Like, it's not any in-depth analysis he's ever done or story he's broken. It's the bad beats segment. And maybe we go overboard with it. Rob,
I think I would say it's been successful and it's in your wheelhouse. Like, if you're good at it, you know, I mean, like, if you're a pitcher and you've got a pitch that is your best pitch, are you going to just start throwing, like, you throw it? You know what I mean?
I also think this, and this is the last thing
you got a play that's working. If they can't stop the fullback dive and the triple option, are you just going to start airing it out?
Rob is absolutely hating this, but I'll say one more thing, and I don't want this episode to be like a whole referendum on the Gauchos, but people also don't delineate between the Twitter feed and the actual podcast. Like, on Twitter, yeah, we do some stuff to get engagement. On the podcast, we have like actual discussions about sports that's a little more in-depth, a little more knowledgeable, less gimmicky. And so if people just see our Twitter and they never click on a link to listen to a podcast, they probably have no idea who we are, what we're about. So even the people who hate our Twitter might actually enjoy the podcast a little bit more than they like the Twitter feed.
I think maybe another criticism of us is that we love ourselves too much. But hey, when you're this great, like, Kyle, somebody's saying you're bald. Will you prove that you're not bald, or do you?
No, I'm not
do you
bald.
Need to? Yeah, great hair. Look at that lettuce. Good God, he's beautiful.
I've got some pictures from circa 2019. I'm definitely not bald. My hair was down to my shoulders back then.
Yeah. Did you ever have long lettuce, Tech Hoops guy? Did you ever grow it out? Did you ever have a mullet?
I've kind of got one right now.
Oh yeah.
But no, I mean, I just kind of have a natural mullet. I've got just like real straight hair, so if it gets any length, it goes into the mullet.
Respect.
I'm not. That's okay. My dad, when I was growing up, my dad had a mullet.
Hell yeah. Well, East Texas, man.
Yeah.
Lots of mullets down there. Trees and mullets.
Yeah.
All right. Something we do every episode, another bit, is final thoughts. Tech Hoops guy, any final thoughts on the episode?
Just like my impression of it?
Yeah, just baseball. We don't know what we do. We just do final thoughts and we do 30 more minutes. Baseball, final thoughts for the weekend, or...
You said 30 more minutes?
We'll try not to. Like, one time, that's just another bit that people say we go too long in the final thoughts.
Yeah.
I try to keep...
You guys are bit deniers. You guys are bit deniers.
Kyle's a bit denier.
It's just, it's unbelievable.
It's a bit that we don't do bits.
When, like, I'm telling you, you're getting an impression from somebody who's, I definitely know who you guys are, right? I've been there kind of from the beginning. I was on Tech Twitter before y'all had a deal, and I've been on Red Raider Sports. I knew Kyle was, and I'm telling you, you guys come with the heat on the bits, and like it's good. It's good. It works, and it's like, and then I come on here and it's like nothing but bit denying. And I'm like, that's my final thoughts. Is there's some bit deniers, and as I'm saying that, Rob's pointing down.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just there's only one bit denier. But I mean, it's borderline, like it's almost an unreasonable and unrational kind of stance. I'm just telling you how it is.
No, okay. Can I clarify here?
He's a truth teller, man.
No, I totally acknowledge some bits. I lean into the bits, but not everything is a bit.
Yeah, no, that's what's actually hilarious is you've done this a couple times is you'll say, we don't actually, I mean, I do a lot of, you're like, I fire off bits and like, yeah, this guy, I hit him with a bit and we actually have some beef, but I don't actually do a lot of bits other than when I wake up and start doing all the bit stuff. like that. When you're explaining it, that's literally what it sounds like.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And there's a guy, a parlay picador in our Discord who, like, he's been a Twitter mutual of mine for like 5 years, and he has no idea when I'm being serious and when I'm doing a bit. And so, like, I actually want Texas Tech to interview Sean Miller, and if we hired him, I'd be over the moon. But like when I put it as my username here, it says like bring Sean Miller home. People perceive it as a bit, and so that's probably a shortcoming of mine, that I just don't come across as a serious enough person to be taken seriously, even when I'm trying to make an actual point.
I'm just glad that we finally got some resolution there. Lean into the bits. Kyle, do you have any final thoughts?
I do bits, and I actually what?
That's going on Context Free GG later.
I actually really appreciate Tech Hoops Guy is a sharp guy in many ways, and so his recap there of how he has perceived me throughout this episode has actually been very insightful. I'm gonna take it to heart. I really am.
No, I mean, but I'm not. It's not critical. It's like I said, you stick with your fastball.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Don't, you're wanting to go away from it in certain counts, and I think you need to just throw the heater.
Well, but here's what I don't want to do is like I do get proud of myself sometimes. So like when we played Iowa State in football, but here, before you even go, you have a bit related to every opponent we'll play, but you don't do bits. Yeah.
Okay. Continue.
So when we played Iowa State, we were missing either Rashad Williams or Malik Dunlap. I can't remember which corner. I think it was Dunlap. And everything they threw was not just outside, but like outside the hash. It was like outside the numbers. Like every single completed pass they had downfield was a toe tapper right on the sideline. Like they were abusing us on the far fringes of the width of the field. And so like I know the game of football. When I watch it, I can pick up on something like that and add up the stats. Say like, hey, they only completed 11 passes and 9 of them were outside the numbers right along the sideline. And so people who see the Twitter account do what?
No, keep going. I'll fact check that as you continue.
So when people see the Twitter account, they think I'm like this idiot troll who doesn't know anything. Like, so here's all I'm saying is like, I don't want to be perceived like a big game boomer type that like only trolls people. Cause like I do actually rewatch the games and like look for tendencies and try to find some sort of statistical anomaly. So I think that's just where I'd like people who maybe don't like the Twitter stuff. I wish they would actually listen to us. Cause I think like if they listen to a post game recap, they might get a different vibe from us than they would get from the Twitter account. That's all I'm saying.
While you're ranking bridges in the Big 12?
Right.
My final thought is that we're going to Omaha, so buy your tickets.
I love it.
Yeah. We're going to fact check before we finish here.
If y'all want it, I'm pulling it up. It's
okay.
Take a little bit.
Yeah, we can do it.
Yeah, let's see if you should be taken serious.
I do remember talking about that they were going to the sideline quite a bit with, what was his name? Hutchinson?
Xavier Hutchinson.
Yeah.
So
I'm just going from memory there. I'm pretty sure he completed either 11 or
60%. 60% of their passes were outside the hash, and that includes behind the line of scrimmage. So if you take those out, it's probably 70%, 75%. We're outside the numbers.
Yeah. I can't remember
that's
if
a lot.
I did.
No, that's a lot.
Yeah. I can't remember if I only did like downfield passes. And I think I was only looking at completions. I don't know if you're looking at attempts or completions.
That's what I'm looking. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Completions. Yeah. And yeah. So there are times I guess where you're selling yourself. You're losing some credit, but not with everyone, right? I mean, if you're saying it's like, how could that be a bit? If you're like, our expected points added per play on third down runs. I mean, there's just no room for a bit in that. But when you're coming at, when you're like saying, UT football, who would be a favorite on a neutral site against every Big 12 team, is the worst team in the conference. Like, obviously, I'm like, that's probably a bit. You know what I mean?
Like, I don't do that. I don't go that far. Like the furthest I ever went was saying that Zach Evans was the greatest running back in TCU history, and that was like such an obvious joke, or should have been. And then I actually sincerely regretted that because it caused such a Twitter firestorm. I was like, okay, maybe rein it in a little bit and do like a minor troll, but don't go like so far off the deep end.
That caused such a controversy. I got blocked on my personal.
By who?
A guy who didn't like that tweet, I guess.
A TCU stat account.
That guy, that dude, he's an angry little guy.
Yeah, he is.
I don't have beef with him, but he's an angry little person.
Well,
Yes, he is.
He honestly, that guy could win some money, but he just has no idea how gambling markets are how they work or are made. But I think he's got, because y'all talking about that Stats War guy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's sharp enough to be able to maybe, and he's doing it like in a stupid way. He's putting his stuff out there that in a way that it can like impact the market, possibly the betting market for free, and that's not, as people who gamble, we don't want that. Like we get mad at people when they, like in the college football space, like on Tuesdays when they're like popping teams at these really low limits, and we're waiting, and we're like, dude, can you wait like 48 hours until everyone can actually, you're betting $200 a game or something. And he's having that effect without even betting. And it's like, I'm hoping, because he kind of was doing that for college baseball last year towards the end during the postseason. And so I'm hoping he doesn't do that because he doesn't know how gambling markets work, but he has actionable information that he puts out there for free at times. Kind of frustrating.
For every game.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, he's kind of just a bitter little guy. He's a bitter little toad.
Well, he's a TCU fan. I think a lot of them are bitter.
Yeah.
I mean, I messaged him from my personal and was like, I don't know. I feel like I would approach it from like a pretty sincere standpoint. It was like I wanted to have a reasonable conversation with him and be like, hey, I'm a normal guy. I'm a good guy. Like I wasn't trying to, and he just like blocked me. So I was like, okay, I can only try so hard.
Yeah. Just more beef.
More beef, man.
I guess, man. And I probably get too defensive because I've spent way too much time trying to defend the Gauchos on here, and I guess
just lean into it, man.
Some people are going to be hate, but I don't want to be just like a troll. Like I want people to actually come here for like sports insights.
Everybody wants an anti-hero, man.
Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, that's the equivalent of that to me is like John McMillan being like, I want to throw an ephus, but I just really, I wish I could get guys out with an ephus pitch. It's like, yeah, but you throw 100 miles an hour. You know what I mean? So maybe we just throw fastballs here and just get, just come after this guy instead of trying anything crazy.
Yeah.
That's my advice to you. Just keep it up,
I'll take it to heart, but yeah.
The people warned you that the final thoughts go on forever.
Seriously.
D-Wayne says he's sensing alpha energy from me. I don't know tonight if he's sensing it as just how I always am. So
that's your favorite commenter, right?
Yeah. Well, he's trying to suck up a little bit now because I said I didn't know if you liked me earlier because he called you bald.
What's the Venn diagram of Gauchos and Red Raider sports members? Is there how much overlap is there?
Probably some.
Seems like a lot because.
It's hard for me to sense how many people are on Red Raider Sports because there's so many lurkers who don't post. It's kind of like Twitter. Like 10% of the posters make up 50% of the posts.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I anytime the Gauchos have been brought up on Red Raider Sports, I would say the majority don't know we exist. And then of the 30% who do know we exist, it's like 20% like us, 10% don't like us.
I just looked at Gauchos. I just did a query on the Red Raider Sports, and somebody's watching. Somebody's sold on.
Oh, jeez. Oh, that's not good.
Here's one. I am pro Gauchos. Fantastic Twitter gets the people going.
There you go.
Ben Golan. I like. This is funny. Me, someone who likes the Gauchos and at Mac Red. That's Ben Golan's comment.
Oh, there you go.
I remember that. That's the thread where I finally was like, okay, I've had enough of the slander.
Here's one. It just says really weak.
Oh, it's because we blocked him and like he didn't give any context for why we blocked him.
I made the Gauchos mad. I'll take the L versus Team Gaucho. I don't feel like getting dragged by a group of friends who apparently have their own Twitter Hall of Fame. I'll just coexist and I'll shut up. The gambling oomlangs can have their W.
Yeah, that's the guy that's the beef guy.
Here's one. Rob and Kyle are knowledgeable and entertaining to listen to. I mean, I'm telling you, it's majority positive.
I posted that one from my burner on Red Raider Sports.
You have 2 accounts.
And here's one. Somebody said 409 is a huge fan of their gambling content. I'm 409 on Red Raider Sports.
I know,
Somebody said, which is a joke because I was probably knocking y'all's gambling content at some point.
No, I've seen you, like, I know that you just hate all gambling content.
Yeah, it's not directed at y'all. It's just, yeah.
Well, and hopefully now
but
you know
actually,
that.
I don't know if y'all do that. I think I just assumed that y'all were doing like Barstool-esque gambling content, which to me, I think that is like irresponsible. Is how I see that.
Yeah. Well, because we do have we'll have people DM us on Twitter and they're like, "Hey, I'm looking for like a third leg to this parlay. Do you have any advice?" And I'm like, "No, like I'm not telling you who to bet on with your money. Like, do whatever you want."
We're very upfront that we're not a tout service. We will give our leans, but we're not giving picks. We're not a tout service. We don't claim to be. We're not sharp. We'll give you our records, but we don't. First of all, it's not legal in Texas, so there is some sidewinding we have to do. Obviously,
it's legal to bet in Texas. It's not legal to be a bookmaker in Texas.
Right. And everyone's like, "Oh, do you have a book?" It's like, dude, you can Google Bet Online or Bovada. Like, you don't need me to tell you a book.
Yeah, I feel like we have cops in our DMs all the time. They're like, "Hey, I'm not a cop or anything, but like, who's your bookie?" And I'm like, "No."
I do remember one time y'all gained a lot of respect from me now that I'm thinking about it. Whenever I think someone was trying to make y'all an affiliate.
Yeah. Which book was that?
And that is a tricky deal. That's a tricky deal because there's an affiliate, for people who are listening, is like websites that will put sportsbook ads on there. And if someone clicks from their website and goes to that sportsbook and loads up money, the website will get a kickback. And sometimes it's just based on a click. Sometimes it's based on losses. Actually, a majority of them are based on losses from people that go to their website and click. And so the person who's an affiliate actually is incentivized to put out horrible information, because the more the people lose, the more money they're going to make. And like that, to me, that is the kind of stuff that I'm out on. And like, I wouldn't be doing this if I thought y'all were doing that, you know? And so I remember what y'all had early on, this was like almost a year plus ago, y'all said something about that to me. And I kind of like went on a thing and I was like, only do it if you're one of the people who just get it per person who signs up and has nothing to do with people's losses, because that is, to me, immoral and like unethical and like irresponsible.
It was BetUS, and they offered both. They offered both. They said, "Hey, we'll give you this for a certain amount of time, and then it'll be based on the handle and the losses." And I thought that was weird. So BetUS, if you want to,
y'all gained just y'all asking, like just having like the self-awareness to be like, "What is this?" You know, and like asking me about it, I gained a lot of respect. But speaking of being triggered by gambling content, tech podcasts, there is a current tech podcast, the Locked On podcast, triggers me to the highest amount because they have betting stuff. So they had Bet Online was a sponsor that they were pushing, and that's okay. I'm okay with Bet Online. They actually take bets. They won't take my college baseball or my FCS. And I can only bet like $20 on NFL, which makes no sense because I'm a lifetime loser in the NFL. But at least they will take action. But right now they're doing FanDuel when no one in Texas can even use FanDuel. Right. So I'm like, and then their intro for Bet Online is like, if you want all the info, go to Bet Online. If you want the right information, if you want to stay up to date, I'm like, what? It's a sports betting. There's no information there. They're trying to take your money. I don't know. So yeah, I'm very sensitive to that kind of stuff for no reason. But
I think you have good reasons, and I think that all makes sense. I don't think anybody going on a podcast, going on Twitter, and being like, bet the mortgage. I think that's kind of dumb. Like, I don't think anybody really enjoys that content, and I also think it's like, if you're actually good enough at betting on sports to make money on it, you're not telling people in all caps on Twitter what to hammer like
you're not.
every weekend, you know? So I think most people are able to see through that. But anyway.
Yeah. No, it's the exact opposite. The people who win do not. I mean, the example is the Baron Morton thing. Like, people who have an edge do not want to talk about their edge and do not want anyone else to know about it, because if it gets out there, it'll go away.
Yeah.
So like we had one that someone was talking about this past year that we were doing at high volume and it's like the most hilarious thing ever. It's team to score first in college basketball. And we were just betting on teams who had the taller guy doing the jump ball. And there was a certain limit to it. And it was normally like 3 to 5 inches. And so if a guy, like there was remember Norchad O'Meara? He was a guy that we wanted really bad. And he ended up going to Miami. And he was like, he's really short. And he's an athlete. But when he's going up against a guy that's like 7 foot, he loses the jump ball. And he was so there's just like Purdue has a 7'2" guy that wins every jump ball. And some people started talking about it. And then the market, like our edge was gone. Like we were playing him. And then because the way those lines are generated is just based on the spread. So a 10-point favorite has the same odds to score first as all 10-point favorites would have the same odds. They didn't take into account the size of the people doing the jump ball. And once it got out there it got out there on some telegrams and Twitter, they figured it out and it was gone. So like that's the people who win. They don't want anyone to know how they're winning. You know, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, Kyle does go full Stu Feiner every once in a while, but it's not
I don't even know what that means, to be honest with you.
That's the Barstool guy who like drools and slobbers, and he like has the chains, and he like has a seizure, and he gives out a pick.
You ever seen 2 for the Money?
No, I'm totally unfamiliar with what y'all are.
Matthew McConaughey?
It doesn't sound like me, but
Stu Feiner had a sports betting, like they call it tout service. He would give away picks. You would pay for the picks, and then they would give you the picks, and then you would bet the picks. You would basically pay them money to make your picks.
Yeah. And while we're on that, if there's people here who do that, don't do it. Yeah. That is a scam. There's one paid tout service that is worth doing, but you can't actually do it because if a person's putting out a pick on a tout service, if it's actionable, the line moves instantly, like literally instantly. So there's one that's called Right Angle Sports, or RAS. The acronym is RAS, and they are legit. They're legit. And when they put out a pick, you literally have about 3 seconds to bet it.
Yep.
Or it moves. So there's 2 options. You're either buying picks from someone who does not move the market, so therefore you're going to lose, and you're paying to lose, or you're buying picks from someone that the line moves instantly, and a normal person who has a regular job, they cannot feasibly bet those before they move. So the pick selling business is just a total racket. I mean, it's just a complete racket.
Well, yeah, I mean, just think about it. If you're some guy who knows, you know, how to win bets for like an NFL game, let's say, are you going to make more money betting tens of thousands on that information that you know, or like charging people $50 a month to, like, it makes no sense. If they could win on that bet that they're selling you, they would just do it with their own money and make way more than you're paying them on it. So I'm with you there.
That Right Angle Sports guy is on VSiN every once in a while.
Yeah, and he does some releases.
Yes.
Chernoff. They just hired Chernoff. Yeah.
Yeah, and they go real quick.
And so I do Right Angle Sports just because I'm someone who's able to bet them at the numbers that they give out. And even when it's not even, I can only do it in certain accounts, because if you do it, they're going to call you and be like, hey, you're done, man. Like if you bet over 142 and the line ends up 147, you're not going to be able to bet with that person much longer. It's not, you know what I mean? So even if you're able to benefit from it, you're not long-term. Like, I would rather have my account that I can bet team to score first, college basketball, Donovan Smith unders, and college baseball for 10 years than be able to get on one college basketball total. That's
Yeah.
I think Tech Hoops, I think we've actually had a similar conversation in the DMs. Like, it's kind of like blackjack. Even if you're an advantage player and you know how to count cards and make money, like, one, it's going to take you hours and hours potentially, because even if you're counting the cards correctly, you could still kind of have some bad luck. But as soon as they figure out that you're an advantage player, like when you're
You're
shoving $500 after you're betting the table minimum for an hour, like they're going to cut you off before you can't go to that table every day and, make a living doing that. So,
no, that is it. You're exactly right. There's I call it, there's a distinction between the science of sports betting. The science, to me, that's figuring out what a good bet is. And then the art of it is the mechanics of actually getting money on it, and then being able to continue to get money on it over time, even though it has an edge. And the first part, the science, the figuring out the good bet, that part is easy. Like what I just said about the team to score first. Like, do you have to be smart to realize that a taller guy is more likely to win a jump ball? No. But the hard part is keeping your accounts alive. And so what I have to do is I kind of have, I do a rotation. So some days, some accounts get the good stuff, and then some days they get the bad. You have to make bad bets. I advocate against parlays. I bet parlays, because if I'm catching too much heat on a book, I'll put some parlays in there just to you have to do something. That's how I know I'm a lifetime losing NFL bettor, because I'll play NFL into my accounts just to look like a normal person, to keep them alive.
Do you ever bet for entertainment, like on a national anthem over or anything like that?
The only thing I bet for entertainment is UFC.
Okay.
So I will bet. That is when I turn into I just pick a guy and bet on him, and I mean, I like it to watch it. It's just really entertaining. So that is what I have no edge there. I know I don't have an edge, but I still bet it because I think it's awesome to watch a UFC fight that you have money on. But the other stuff, I don't even watch them, I mean, I've got college basketball stuff going now. I don't watch them. I have to watch my baseball stuff because that's the stuff I need to have a handle on, but I'm not sweating it like what you're talking about. The recreational bettor. I mean, I need to come to grips with it. It's okay for people to bet on something for the entertainment and know that they're not getting they don't have an edge. There's a reason why people go to the movies and buy a $10 candy. They're getting screwed on that, but it's an entertainment thing. Right. But it's for me, I just don't do that other than UFC.
It's going to become more and more prevalent too, especially if the Texas House gets in line with what they think they're going to get in line with app betting coming soon.
Yeah, but that won't change my stuff because those places. I mean, if I had it, I was talking about those kiosks earlier, you can bet with some anonymity into kiosks, but if Texas became legal and I went and the college basketball stuff that I get, if I went to somewhere and started hammering them on that, it would not take long for them to cut me. And so the place that you can actually bet a lot of money on is with Vinny at down the street. Right. That's the guy that I would still be using those guys, even if legal. I would probably mix it in, if a kiosk was near me, I would probably be driving more, but I would still have to be using the Vinnies of the world, just because legal books, they're frauds. They don't take bets from, if they think you have a pulse, you're gone. They only want the people following Barstool.
Right, that's what I meant. You'll have to come to grips more with the entertainment bettor, just because it's going to be more prevalent, and everybody will bet.
Yeah, and hopefully, it would be great, because what they do whenever they come to a state, it's honestly like a gold rush type. Well, for them to get market share, they have to do these marketing ploys and bonuses, and you actually can win any person. It'll be maybe if you deposit 500 and you make 20 bets, they'll double your money that you put in there. Mm-hmm. And that even a normal person, if they're smart about it, can make quite a bit of money in that initial kind of run when the sportsbooks are new to a place and they're trying to pick up market share. Like that happened in Colorado. They're called bonus hunters. People that know how to take advantage of the bonuses just go there and they open up 1 million accounts, and you can really make some money doing that for a short period of time.
Rob, I have one last question for Tech Hoops Guy.
Okay.
So Rob and I did a bit 2 football seasons ago where here we go again. We did I feel like every week it got worse and worse, but it started with a 6-leg all chalk money line, can't miss parlay, and then
Yeah.
it was like 11 legs, 17 legs. How much do you hate the 17 leg all chalk money line parlay?
I mean,
Like is there a worse? Is there a bet?
I think they were
worse than that?
1-8 that season.
there is no worse bet, and like because it's number one, the bet like the individual bets are bad, right? Most likely,
Yes.
Odds are they're bad,
Yes.
and then but what you're doing is the parlay is just creating leverage, so you're just like multiplying the negative edge you have by a lot. If you just bet them all individually, you would have a small negative edge, small, but instead you're just multiplying that negative edge by so much that you just for example, and I think it's Pennsylvania, we call it a straight bet, Cowboys -3, -110. They will hold, the sportsbook will hold on to like 5 to 6% of those bets. So for every dollar bet, they'll keep about 6 cents. Parlays, they hold 20 cents. So they make 4 times the amount on a parlay versus the straight bets because of the negative hedges leverage. It's trading on leverage. So it's just, it's bad. It's really bad to be doing that. There's no other way to say it. If each bet individually had an edge and you parlayed them, that's good. And I'm saying that there's always exceptions. Like when I'm betting Little League, I have to parlay them because in order for me to, it's such a small market that is the way for me to get down more money is by parlaying my bets together. But I think they have edges individually, and so I'm parlaying them. So there's always.
I loved your reaction when I said that we did a bit like that. You're like, here we go again.
Yeah,
but,
you were just like a couple weeks ago. We tried to mix it up. We tried to change things, and what we did is we did this little bit. And
no, that was an unashamed bit. But Rob, I think that's all I have. I really enjoyed it. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I know we went on like a really sidebar tangent there talking about different gambling stuff, but I had a lot of fun. I think our listeners will like this a lot. If you really want to manufacture beef as a bit with From Here It's Potable and Gauchos, we're down to get dragged on Red Raider Sports.
I think From Here It's Potable could learn a lot about podcast, just everything. This is a top notch operation.
We'll have you both on sometime, maybe to preview the football season. That'd be fun.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. I would just want to see us get dragged on, like the people who took the beef seriously. I'd want to see all the haters on Red Raider Sports who can't stand the Gauchos bits.
All the haters and losers.
I'm sure Discord would be anti-FIP because I don't
think so.
Know. I think they might, as a bit, take y'all's side.
I think a lot of the people in the Discord are also message board subscribers generally, but probably Red Raider Sports. I'm sure they listen to y'all and like y'all. But yeah, it is like a home turf kind of thing. Like the people on Red Raider Sports are going to say that the Red Raider Sports podcast is way better, and vice versa, perhaps. But I don't know. I think our Discord would probably say that From Here It's Potable is better than the Gauchos.
Yeah. Well, we don't get a lot of support from the administration at Red Raider Sports. We were shunned as the official podcast. They went and got some other podcast to become the official podcast over us, and it was kind of a tough blow.
Yeah, did you guys not take that very well?
One member did not take it. Took it a lot harder than the other. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, we collectively did not take that very well.
Well, there's some opportunities for some content networks if you're looking.
What's that? I don't know.
We'll do it off here. All right.
I think Rob's trying to pitch you on something.
Again, I said final thoughts about 30 minutes ago, so
yeah, you did.
I was dead on there.
You're right.
So, okay, now I need clarification. Did we go 30 minutes as a bit, or was that a genuine conversation?
That wasn't. It was genuine, though. That's what happens.
Yeah, it was. You're right.
Hard to tell sometimes, huh?
I've been trying to close this thing for like 20 minutes. So.
I know you always do, and I just sit here and ramble. But
Kyle, you're the one that closes it, buddy.
This right here. This is the goalpost that Crabtree ran into.
Oh yeah.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
How did you get that?
I stole it.
Legit.
Look at that. Seriously, that's it.
Isn't that one of the 2 commandments that you said was a deal breaker?
Stealing.
Yeah, well, not for. I mean, yeah, I
Not
guess
for
it
me.
was.
We the head coach.
Not for me, though.
That's hilarious, dude. Well, thanks for coming on. It was a lot of fun, and if you're down, we'll bring you back during maybe conference play or something, or
Yeah,
the Little League World Series.
or postseason. But
Yeah.
yeah, literally. Hey, if you I probably won't do Little League World Series, to be honest.
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
I mean, well, surely your listeners won't bet and impact the market in a negative way, so we maybe could.
All right. Or we can just bring you on for like a recap when it's over to tell us. You can
Well,
give
I'll
us a
post them.
recap.
I'll post them in the Discord. I mean,
There you go.
I'll
Okay.
put the picks as they're happening in the Discord.
Patreon.com/gambling gauchos.
Yeah, that's a new membership perk.
Tout service.
But anyway, yeah.
Seriously.
Hey, well, we appreciate you coming on. That was a lot of fun, and we hope to do it again sometime.
Yep.
All right. Love y'all.